All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and presume that we're live. We're live with Miss Brianna Wu. We've been doing all the setup stuff. That's why we have big, beautiful overlays, and we couldn't have picked a better week to come back because everything is on fire right now, and you're running on 4 hours of sleep. So
I know, it's
we are
great.
ready to go.
I was up all night arguing with Jesse Gender, which is super exciting. That's what you want to be doing at 12 o'clock at night. It's great.
Nice. Well, yeah. So we're gonna have plenty of stuff for everybody at home, presuming that we're live right now. If I could do my summary, and then maybe if you want to add a little bit to it. Basically, what's going on is I would say we've all expected some drama. At least I saw drama vultures kind of circling around Keffals for the past few months.
Yep.
It seemed like Keffals was making a healthy chunk of cash in December doing drama streams herself. It seems like she did not enjoy that, so she stepped away from it. It seems like she got into a fight with the commentary community, and then she decided to step away from it. And then we've kind of been holding our breath because it was announced that Mutahar, aka Some Ordinary Gamers, was looking into the Catboy Ranch and looking into the GoFundMe situation with Ms. Keffals. This has resulted in a video being released, a video that we will be watching together shortly. But you are also former friends with Keffals. You were associates with Keffals, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think we were friends
walk us
for a
through.
really long time. When all the Kiwi farm stuff was going down, obviously, it has a lot of echoes of Gamergate. I've tried to be there for her the best I can be. I was part of a group of people that have been trying to take down Kiwi farms for like a really long time. So I obviously support this mission 3000, and for a really long time I've considered Keffals a friend. I've tried to be there for her. I've run cover for her in the public eye, and this video coming out, it was a lot to get through.
Well, and I guess just because I've heard you mention that a few times, I even caught through drama channels, I caught some of your coverage, I guess, or other people's coverage, and they're talking to you and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what is the what makes you think that it's like echoing or reminiscent of Gamergate?
Well, the Kiwi Farms stuff, it was obviously a huge thing that happened during Gamergate, right? The harassment of Keffals online obviously has a lot of echoes. The swatting obviously has echoes. I worked with Congresswoman Catherine Clark quite a bit, which is awesome because now she's in charge of the DNC, which is really great. I think she's amazing. So, just top to bottom, it has a lot of echoes. And, just on a more personal level, Connor, I don't know if I've talked to you about this on the show before. But I've been sober for 20 years. I think it was 2002 that 2002 or 2003, I went into rehab for poly addiction. I was an alcoholic. I did street drugs. I did Xanax. I did, Ambien. I did anything I can get my hands on, which is how poly addiction works. And, I beat the odds. I've been sober for 20 years. So, I take a lot of pride in that. So, especially as Keffals was dealing with her own trip through rehab.
So did you kind of see yourself in Keffals a little bit? Is that kind of what's going on? You see like a young gal activist who's under a deluge of bullshit from a whole bunch of people, and you're like, oh snap, it's a smaller version of me.
100%. And I think something I've been willing to do to this point is kind of defend her in the public eye more and more. And we had the stream that happened the other day with Keemstar and Mutahar himself and Beckett and Nicholas Diorio. So all these really big figures, and it was really them sitting down trying to talk some sense into me for 2 hours. And I got
a little defensive, and Chud Logic got a little pissed. I'll definitely tell you about that, but I do want to acknowledge Pondering Politics. He gave us our inaugural donation. So thank you, Pondering Politics, for $10. He says, Brianna Wu, hope you're feeling well. Connor, submit to Sheev. He's talking about Sheev Palpatine, the Emperor from Star Wars. I will not. Of course, I have said this before. I'll say that again. He looks like a shriveled testicle sack, and also the Emperor of Mankind would eat him for breakfast. So I will not submit. Thank you for the dono, though, Pondering. I do appreciate it sincerely.
Sweet. I know we owe you a conversation, Pondering, so we will do that at some point.
But I wanted to share my frustration with the commentary community. So it seems like, so we all have our defaults, right? Where we want to be charitable to the people that we're friendly with.
Sure.
And so I can think back, just throwing stones in glass houses for fun. Mr. Girl and Chud Logic were close. Even after Mr. Girl was going up against Destiny, it seemed like he was too hot for anyone to touch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nick Diorio in the commentary community, they were friends with Tipster for quite a while, even while he was getting entrenched in, lolicon related dramas. And they were like, hey, we still love Tipster. We want him in the community, et cetera, even though some of the community was trying to throw stones at him. And then, so we all have our friends. And I took criticism from Chud Logic earlier today. He was saying that I didn't go hard enough at Vosh. I have my reasons, but we can get into that in a bit. But the point being that, like,
what kind of made you defend Vosh, if I can ask?
I didn't. I saw a parallel in what was happening to you with what happened to me. People took a level of neutrality or ambivalence as defense.
Ooh.
So defense being like, no, my friend is correct. Whereas what I think I did was, well, I think Vosh has some redeemable political, priorities, clout, whatever you want to call it. So as a result, he's already gotten dogpiled. I'm not going to add to the dogpile because I see some redeemable value in this character. Now, he's done some things since then that have frustrated the shit out of me, but I think that is actually a parallel to your situation where you saw something redeemable or interesting in Keffals, and it's hard to let that go. So actually that was the parallel. They took ambivalence and the fact that you didn't have your pitchfork out as you defending, and I think that if you actually listen to the words that you're saying, I didn't see much defense.
No.
So actually, do you feel like you defended Keffals' actions?
On that stream, I do, or more than I needed to. I mean, in my defense, I should have really watched Mudahar's stream before jumping on. I had no idea I was going to go on that night. Just some friend of mine texted me who was like, hey, are you where Beckett is talking about you? I log in. I'm like, oh my God, they're really blasting my tweet I put out the other day. And then, they start going like, oh, that's not Brianna Wu in chat. That's not Brianna Wu in chat. I'm like, fuck you, this is Brianna Wu in chat. I'm going to roll on in and show you who I am. Yeah, I had no idea it's going to turn into that.
Well, what's funny about that is, so I like drama content. I consume drama content. So what's funny is, particularly in Queeman's chat, but also sometimes in Chud Logic's chat, I think you can create like custom name banners or whatever. And so they will pretend to be other people trying to shit stir in chat. So that's why they didn't believe it was you at first.
Fair enough.
But that actually kind of begs the question though. So, you're seeing them dogpiling your tweet. You jump in, you look before you leap. We all do that. I wanted to ask though, what frustrated me was I feel like I understood your point, and I felt like they were being obtuse about it, which you were saying like, and this is the analogy that they're not accepting, which I feel like I borderline wanted Chud here almost in order to have this conversation because he was being very abrasive and aggressive, but I felt like you could defend the analogy even if it's not a one-to-one. You were saying that if we make trans healthcare difficult to access, then we can expect people to go to back alley resources, essentially.
100%.
And so they were taking that as a defense of the DIY HRT website rather than a description of kind of like what's going to happen within reality. So do you want to expand on that idea?
Is there more to say about it? You named it exactly. Like, this is how I feel, and I don't know how much more.
Well, I think you need to expand it for their sake, because they're when I was hearing the commentary, they're like, oh, Brianna Wu loves Oto Kanoko Pharmaceuticals giving 16-year-olds, fake estrogen with cat hairs inside it. She loves it. She thinks it's the best thing ever. And but I'm saying, like, that's the commentary that I watched today. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I didn't hear Brianna Wu specifically defending Oto Kanoko Pharmaceuticals in their cat hair filled fake estrogen. Like, I did not hear that in the statement that you made.
Getting a coat hanger in a back alley to get an abortion.
Well, and that's either. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little pissed, but or energetic, but that was one of the things that I was thinking of with the analogy, because Chud was mad, I was mad too, but he was like, it's not a good analogy because you don't need it for this, that, the other reason. And I'm like, hold on. Think about it. even if somebody said, a progressive, somebody who's pro-choice, if they said, if you ban all abortion, there's going to be a certain amount of back alley abortions.
Right.
Most people would not presume that you're defending back alley abortions as a
No.
concept. You're being descriptive about a worse reality.
That's right. So let me be super clear. I don't support HRT for minors. And this is my position, Connor. And this is a nuanced position. Okay. I am on record. And unlike a lot of people that advocate for trans health care, I will tell you, I don't think the system for trans kids getting health care is operating. I've looked at all the studies. The first time I looked at all these studies, by the way, was on your show to prep for your show. And if you remember that, it is Taff and Kyla and me sitting here, and we are all agreeing that there's not directional evidence that this system is working super great. We're not against it, but it's also not true that it's working well. There are clearly people getting through the safeguards that should not be getting through. That doesn't mean I want the entire thing burned down. It means I want this to function well. And I think that, you know, a minor transitioning needs to be for the most extreme cases, right? This is not something where someone comes in and says, oh, I feel a little uncomfortable with my gender role. I'd like to get on HRT. Nope, slow down. We need to go to a therapist. We need to see if you meet some criteria. We need to have a really long conversation before.
But then that also makes you a turf Nazi bigot, though.
Right. So I can't win on this.
You can't win with anybody. No, but that's actually hilarious to me, because I was actually talking to the wife about the situation before we even went live. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure Brianna doesn't want like 12-year-olds getting gender reassignment surgery. I'm pretty sure she would be taking like a pretty medicalist, like, okay, so sorry. I need to explain it a little bit for the audience, because like I know that we're jumping right into it. A healthy chunk of these people are terminally online, so they'll understand it. But I think we also need to frame a little bit more. So over the past 2 years on Twitch and YouTube politics, which is the space that I've been participating in, that Brianna has also been participating in, I would say a little bit more aggressively over the past year, it's kind of been the consensus amongst the progressive debaters that there was a body of research that supported minors, like basically people 10 to 18 or whatever, first taking puberty blockers and then taking hormones after a certain amount of therapy, and that this was the way to go and it was guaranteed. What's that?
It's not guaranteed. The evidence is not particularly strong one way or the other.
And that is the thing that's thrown the wrench in within, I would probably say, the past 3 to 6 months from the space, is that the CAS report specifically in the United Kingdom said that like a lot of the studies that we have previously cited for this stuff are not as robust as we previously believed. And on top of that, we're looking at the results and we're not necessarily seeing like this 100% firm, transition is correct in every circumstance. Affirmative model is the best way to go, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's thrown a wrench in it, where you had this certainty from the more extreme progressive side. You had liberals going like, okay, well, if that's what the science says, that's what the science says. And then now you kind of have like this reversion back to the center, where people don't know what is the best and they're still actively studying it. At least that's my understanding.
But Connor, you gotta let me say this. If you care about those kids, like, don't get me wrong. For my gut, I want kids to be able to transition, right? That's where my bias is. But if you care about those damn kids, we've got to follow the science and figure out the best outcome for them. We've got to figure out how to screen people that do not need this stuff. And we need to, like, there's just a lot we don't know. This is a recent phenomenon at this scale. So it feels to me, it's so fucking maddening to get the policy outcome that you want and then try to fit the science to figure it out. That is not in the best interest of those kids, right? We don't shut this stuff down because it's politically inconvenient. We start talking to parents like they're fucking partners instead of the enemy. I am so tired of hearing trans Twitter talking about parents with legit questions if their kids are going through a fucking phase or not, and talking to them like they're transphobe. This is not a way to win hearts and minds. We got to slow down. We've got to think about this, and we've got to craft some public policy. It makes some goddamn sense. And the TERFs are crazy. You've got trans Twitter that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know what to do about any of this.
No, but see, and this is like my chat's like she wants to transition kids because I have a few hyper conservatives as well, which is fine. We love our hyper conservatives, but that's where I'm saying like you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place rhetorically because what you just said is viewed as not extreme enough,
right?
But I would say the what we would argue the DIY HRT Keffals crew is, which I would say largely did follow and still defends the affirmative model. Still believes that kids are going to be the best opinions when it comes to whether or not they should transition, and then also thinks that if the parents deny care, or if the state denies care or whatever, then they should go the DIY HRT route. So that's where
I think it's inevitable that they're going to. That's what I'm saying to you. And, I want to be really clear. I don't support anyone facilitating minors getting HRT. Hear me on this. This is a huge legal liability. If you do this, you could get a criminal case pursued. Connor, if you found out someone was giving your children DIY hormones, first you'd probably beat them up, and then like you'd pursue a civil case. I can imagine, right? Corruption of a minor, criminal case. Yeah.
That's actually, it's funny you said that. That was the way that my wife and I talked about it because so this is the thing. I'll be too centrist for the folks at home, but it is what it is. So we asked the question, my wife and I, we were kind of like, well, how old are these kids, right? Because if they're 16, 17, they're in a giga conservative area, whatever, they know that they're trans, they're getting denied the healthcare or whatever. They've already talked to a therapist. The therapist concurs with their extreme gender dysphoria. The doctor concurs, all that kind of stuff. They're just not an adult yet, so they're not allowed to go down this treatment path. So do we care, Victoria and I, do we care that these kids are making autonomous decisions when they're on the cusp of being adults? And the answer was kind of no. Yeah. But then we personalized it and we said, what if somebody went after our boys and did the same thing where they were being encouraging gender dysphoria, encouraging their sense of unease, encouraging their anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm just saying that what if that was happening? And then what if our kids were buying drugs off of the black market or whatever? And it's exactly what you said. I would find that person, I would fist fight them, and then I would seek punitive economic damages. And that's because, partially I would like to think I know my boys. They're like the most cis boys that have ever existed on the face of the planet.
I have no doubt of that.
They're literally like, they're running, they're screaming, they're punching things, they're eating dirt, they're doing all the stereotypical boy things. So if they came to me at 15 and they were like, I think I'm a girl, I'd be like, probably not, son. like we could talk to a therapist or whatever, but I think we need to explore some other options.
Sure. But that's the whole thing, Connor, is we've got to start talking to parents like they're adults on all of this stuff. There's a contempt that the left has for parents and decision making. And look, I get it. My own parents are extremely right-wing, homophobic, transphobic. I've told the story many times of a kid in my third grade class that got sent to gay reprogramming class because he made the mistake of telling his parents he was gay. That really did not work out well for him in his future. So I get it. But if you're talking about long-term public policy here, it doesn't make sense for the schools, for public schools, to be engaging in like transing your children, or not, that's a bad way to put it. Like
we're being hyperbolic, but like hiding information from the parents.
Being trans behind your back. If these kids are going to transition, the school needs to be a partner about something that is a very serious healthcare situation, and treating the schools like they belong this way, treating parents like they're the enemy, going out there, giving kids HRT underage and facilitating it. None of this is in the long-term public policy interest of trans people. I understand the argument that some parents are shitty. That's not a mystery to anybody. But we can't build a public policy on kids go on the internet and just take whatever they want.
Well, my problem with what not with what you just said, but it pointed to a problem that I had with the rhetoric coming out of this, is the presumption that every parent is abusive. That was one of the things that was like really frustrating for me. It's like, if we treated every single American adult like they were a criminal and they were one alcoholic drink away from just absolutely beating the crap out of their family, we wouldn't do anything as a society.
Yeah.
And so from like a legislative and cultural perspective, we have to come from a position of good faith, which is basically like, all stakeholders need to be involved and as informed as possible, and we need to use the scientific evidence that isn't just convenient to our perspective, but also seems to be in line with reality. And that's where, again, not extreme enough for the DIY HRT, and then not extreme enough for I would say social conservatives, basically people who believe that, like, hey, God made us this way. It is what it is. Deal with your gender dysphoria. Suck it up. Your sex is your gender, and there's nothing in between.
100%. I do just want to say, for those social conservatives out there, this is kind of the stereotypical, like, what a child like that would look like. Okay. You have a child, and probably around the age of 3 or 4, they tell you, I think I'm a girl. I'm a girl. When am I going to become a girl? They start dressing up as a girl at every single chance. They play with girl toys. When you try to discourage them for this, they get depressed. They eventually get really withdrawn and distant. They're quiet. You don't know them. Your child feels like they're dead inside. They start to develop some secondary issues, depression, substance abuse, acting out, poor grades in school. You're terrified because your child is not on the right path. And then eventually they come to you again and they ask you for help. I think most of those parents, liberal, conservative, whoever you are, you're going to see your child in pain, and you're going to want some answers, because more than left versus right politics, if you've got a kid, you're going to do whatever it takes for your damn kid.
And, well, this gets into your policy. This gets into your policy thing, because you were saying like, oh, well, I would have liked to have seen something from Mudahar, which like the drama channel was very offended. Not Mudahar himself personally, but the drama community was very offended that you asked for like a politics consequences consideration in their drama video. They just wanted the blood and the meat in the viscera and the moral condemnation and the pitchforks and the torches. That's what they wanted. And you robbed them of that by saying like, hey guys, what's the consequences here, and what's the political policy? And I heard you bring it up multiple times during the conversation of the debate, and I think it got totally ignored, was like, hey, this is why I think progressives have failed. I think that if we were talking about like issues like universal access to healthcare, we would be doing a better job of making inroads. The reason why I bring that up is because when you're talking about, let's say that we have that extreme scenario where we have a kid, they want to be the other gender, they've been doing it since youth, et cetera, et cetera. You would want that kid to have access to a psychotherapist probably around the age of puberty, in order to eliminate anxiety, in order to eliminate depression, in order to see if maybe they're homosexual, like all those kinds of things, in order to go down the list of things that kid could be, and then maybe arrive at gender dysphoria, not just presume gender dysphoria and then go blazing 100%. Down the trail. But when you're talking about a country that doesn't have access to healthcare universally, let alone psychological care, then that becomes an impossibility. And the choice is just to suffer. And I like suffering to a certain degree, but I don't like, I don't like unnecessary suffering, and I don't like unproductive suffering. Suffering should be towards a goal that ends up making the world a better place, not perpetual suffering that leads nowhere and makes the world a worse place.
So that tweet that you're talking about that got me in so much trouble is, I put out a tweet basically saying progressivism was lost when we stopped talking about universal health care and we started talking about universal gender neutral bathrooms, which really pissed some people off. And they're like, why are you so transphobic, Brianna? Why are you so transphobic?
Centrist chud, Brianna. And you have to understand like how awesome this is for me, because I'm like, I'm not the only one taking shit in the middle anymore. I got another person. And like, I'm not going to be like, oh, Brianna's such a centrist, because then you're going to catch even more shit than you were. But not towing the ideological line is going to catch you a bunch of shit.
So here's the thing, Connor. I know that you've got a family. You live in Florida. I know we share the appraisal that generally speaking, it's really hard to be a working class person and raise a family today. I don't know anyone doing
Yeah.
that where it's not really difficult. And I think maybe if the Democrats put together some public policy that goes, hey, you know what? If your kid gets fucking sick, you're not going to have to worry about it bankrupting you. I think that'd be a good way for us to win elections, right? I think
Mhm.
like looking at a way to get health insurance in a way that wasn't insanely expensive would be a good thing for us to do. So that's why I was talking about the moment that progressives stop talking about policies that make a lot of people's lives better and hyper focus on like these smaller and smaller groups for identity politics that affect those groups. I'm not saying that like non-binary trans people, I don't support them. What I'm saying is the party cannot win messaging on non-binary people having access to
But
gender
that's
neutral
not enough.
bathrooms.
You have to defend the non-binary vampire, otherkin, werewolf, furry people, or else you're not a real progressive. So that like, and I'm kind of serious. That's the way internet politics is. And so with internet politics, I think this is the problem. Hyperbole drives the algorithm drives revenue, so that's where people are at. Elijah Schaefer, who has been, I don't want to say mainstream, but he's pretty like normie conservative alternative media player. He worked for the Blaze, he worked with Tim Pool, he worked with all these people. He's literally Hitler posting on the timeline right now. He's there's a 20-second video of presumably Arab men in Naples, Italy, hanging out in the street with trash on the ground. And he's like, an Austrian painter warned us about this. And I was like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? But that's normal because he knows that I'll get mad. I'll quote tweet it. A bunch of liberals and progressives will get mad. They'll quote tweet it and retweet it and reply. And then his base of dissident right dickheads will be like, no, you don't get it. He's being really nuanced here. He's actually trolling everyone. Don't worry about it. And so as a result, boom, straight to the top of the algorithm. But we're all fucked because if that's the quality of discourse, if the quality of discourse on the left is we have to defend she, they, non-binary, otherkin, furry, dragon people, and then if on the right it's we need to unironically Hitler post about Muslims, then we're fucked.
Yeah,
we're
our
totally
country is not going to go anywhere. We need to, like, the Democratic Party has a branding problem right now. Yeah, I've said this a million times. One of my biggest mistakes during Gamergate was I was part of this push to make feminism part of superficial stuff. And I'm sorry, like your wife probably doesn't really care if there's a female driver in Forza Horizon 5, but she probably cares a lot if childcare is insanely expensive. There's one policy that affects her life. There's one that doesn't. And, I think the Democrats overall would do a lot better on getting back to business and messaging shit that makes sense for people.
And
So,
I would like to say I had a
yeah,
bigoted thought when I was going to Cincinnati, Ohio for PV. I had female pilots, and I was like, I texted Not So Erudite, and I was like, if I die, you have to tell people that it was female pilot. Like Boeing's, like their airplanes are exploding. I was like, you have to tell them that it's female pilots so they could use it in the culture war. She did not agree to do that, but I was like, but
you should have
like,
texted me. I would do
yeah, exactly. So and guess what? It was fine. We landed. We can't blame the female pilots, not for that one. So yeah, we survived. But
so
that's decent framing. So what else do we need to cover unless we want to start reacting?
Well, I just want to ask, what else did Chad and everyone say about this? Because I just didn't see those videos.
Yeah, so I think Chud's the main one that I want to deal with because I was literally watching it a few hours ago. So I think that he took every single time that you were kind of not passionately trying to destroy Keffals as you doing apologia. I think that's something that was repeated. I did push back on that on chat. He did not like that. Then I think that he was just saying the DIY HRT stuff is crazy, and that anybody who's defending it is basically a moral monster. I also think that, and I also think that the main thing was that anybody having anything besides, maybe this is extreme, but this was the vibe, was anybody having anything besides like the utmost condemnation of Keffals for the GoFundMe was sweeping. So if you're not like pitchforks out, torches out, Keffals is an evil person who stole bread out of the mouths of impoverished poor people, unless you're screaming that from the rooftops, then you're sweeping.
So the very next day when I woke up, I want to read the tweet that I put out because I watched it back and I was thinking about it. And I actually agree with Chud to some extent. I don't think I was defending Keffals, but I do think there was some stuff there that should have been condemned a little bit more. So I put out a tweet. I don't know if you want to pull this out, Connor. Do we have a pipeline to show tweets yet?
We do. Let me go to, although you guys are going to have to forgive us a little bit. Should I go to, do you have the control panel in front of you?
I don't.
I just put it in chat.
Whatever? I just put the tweet in chat if you want to look at that.
Can you send it to me via Discord?
Yep. So let me do that really quickly. Actually, you know what? I'll just read it out.
Sure.
So last night I did a panel with Keemstar, Ordinary Gamers, that's Mudahar, and Nick Diorio. I talked about trans healthcare policy for minors, but Keffals became the primary focus. I was trying to give a nuanced view, but I realized it came off as defending actions I have no interest in defending. I woke up this morning and I have clarity. I've tried to give her the benefit of the doubt at every single turn. I've tried to be the best friend that I can to her because I've also struggled with rehab, extreme death threats, and mental health issues from online harassment. But like she does with everyone else, the friendship is a one-way street. It is stupid to put any credibility on the line for someone literally planning to betray me in back channel. She's getting more than enough heat right now, and I'm not going to add to it, but I'm done with this. Destiny was 100% right about her. Fuck Keffals.
Well, so, all right, hold up. So correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Did you also have a relatively Christian upbringing?
I did.
Yeah. So a lot of people read this as weakness on my part. But I don't really get much personal social satisfaction out of attacking someone who's already getting destroyed. That's even right. If they fucked me over, even if they went out of their way to screw me over, I get no schadenfreude, I get no joy, I get no nothing out of adding to a dog pile that's already horrible. And I think part of the reason why is because, like, growing up or whatever, you see kids get bullied. And if they don't have any kind of allies or whatever, if they have no friends left, et cetera, they do one of two things. They either hurt themselves, which, you know, did happen in high school and middle school, or they hurt other people. They become worse of a bully. They become more monstrous of a person. They don't think redemption is possible. And so as a result, they triple down on their terrible behavior. Yeah. So my instinct towards like mercy or forgiveness or whatever is one thing. It's something that I think has got me a lot of charity with other people. And then two, I don't like to cave to the social pressure to throw somebody under the bus. So your initial instinct to kind of be like, well, let's extend some charity. Let's try to be kind. Let's figure it out or whatever. I understand why people would object to it, but I don't see it as a bad instinct at all. And if anything, I think society should be more like you than they should be like the jeering crowd.
Yeah, that's 100% it. I think there's a real tendency in this space to read dark intentions into everything. Everyone's being controlled or they're a bad person. Yeah, I think it really just stunts people's analysis. But yeah, like my impression of Keffals is that she's someone who has been legitimately traumatized by everything. But, you know, at the same time, it doesn't justify stealing $100,000. It just doesn't. And I gave her part of that.
She stole 70,000. Okay.
70,000. Okay. However much it was.
I kept saying that as a smart ass thing in Chud's chat because they were like 100K. And I was like, well, hold on. Okay. So she replaced like $2,000 worth of electronics. All right. That's, that's one thing. She did prepay her rent in another country. That's not technically like that wasn't agreed to as a part of the GoFundMe. However, she did move and make herself safe. So I'm going to go ahead and put that under that category. Okay, and then what was the other thing that she did? Oh, and then she engaged a lawyer for consultation, which probably cost like a few $1,000, right? So, and then, So if you add up 20 to 28,000 for the apartment and the moving and all that stuff, if you add in, let's be generous, $2,000 for electronics, and then let's add in like another 2,000 to 3,000 in order to file the human rights complaint, we're probably up to 33,000. Sure. So she spent 33,000 in a decently justifiable way in line with the GoFundMe. Now, the remaining 65 to 70, not as much accounted for, but you know, it is what it is. So
That's fair.
yeah.
That's fair. I mean, look, I don't even know. I don't know. It's
You don't have to follow me down my shit posting. I'll take this shit on my
no,
my
I
own.
hear what you're saying. It's just I don't know. I mean, look, just from like a kindness point of view here, I don't know what the right thing is. Like she's obviously
Yeah.
getting blasted up and down, but at the same time, Mudahar's video really brought some stuff to light.
Yeah.
I think if you're an adult joking around and getting trans children access to HRT, that is an extreme loss of judgment, right? And I'm just so torn here because I worry that she has relapsed. I worry about her mental health, but at the same time, I can't be publicly associated with someone, especially when that friendship feels like a one-way street.
Well, I don't think you have to be, and I think the thing about it is the way that I do it is bridges are very rarely burnt from my end.
Mhm.
So let's say hypothetically, Keffals gets clean if she's not clean. She gets her shit together. She makes it a personal mission to inventory all the money that was spent in different ways. She's contrite about it. She says, hey, this is the money that I think I deployed appropriately, that I can defend, that I think was correct. These were my ambitions with the rest of the dollars. This is where it all fell apart. And then these dollars I can't account for. I just fucked up and I'm sorry. And then she goes back to advocacy and she's actually like a decent advocate for her cause.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything there that requires you to hate her in perpetuity.
Of course not. Of course
not. However, if she triples down, tells everybody to fuck off, doesn't account for the money, isn't contrite about anything, doesn't apologize for anything, is rude to everybody, all that kind of shit, then you also don't have to save her either. And that's the difficulty, especially with somebody that you would consider a friend.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right. Well, there it is. What did you have any other thoughts about the Mudahar like Keemstar like showdown video?
No, I think that it's tough to be in a like a 1v3, 1v5 unprepared. And also I think that I noticed the chat, at least in the drama chat, they were like cheering on basically what was people like spurging at you. And then your response of kind of being like, well, I disagree with this, and this, but I hear what you said here, here, and here. And then you would just stop it because that was your honest opinion. They were like, ooh, owned, get wrecked. And it was like, wait, guys, she just said her opinion and then she didn't push back because she didn't want to defend the thing that you were accusing her of.
Right.
That's an honest opinion. And they're like, yeah, get wrecked. And it's like, guys, that's not how conversations between adults like works, but you know, it is commentary, it is the drama stuff, so they want blood and guts. So I could probably find another 2 or 3 things to rant about, but I kind of want to get into the content, just because like the Mudahar reaction, because I think that he will give us new points with which to contend.
Let's do it.
So, all right, cool. Then chat, you're going to have to forgive me. We're working with new control software. We are using StreamYard. So I have to change my overlay and not that. I have to change my overlay. I have to change our setup. I have to go to the new banner. And then we have to start the video. And then I also need to, I'm going to start the video and just make sure chat has audio. So chat, I'm just going to go ahead and shill. We do have 85 people cross-platform. I would say that's a pretty good start to the beginning of the evening. Pondering Politics already started us off with a dono. I know that not everybody is rich, but if you do have some money, please throw it our way. We obviously want to expand the channel. We want to get new equipment. I want to buy more firearms for my science fiction stuff. So we love money. Give us money, me a lot now. But if you haven't seen Always Sunny, go check it out. But let's check the audio. Let us know if it's not working, and we're going to react. Andy, Brianna, please tell me if you want to pause anywhere, and I will pause if I feel like it.
Sounds great.
All right.
I am definitely getting canceled. Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today's video is one that required quite a fair bit of research, and it's one that I should have released a few weeks ago. It's a video that might be one of my most controversial videos, but one that required looking back years upon years of internet history to come to an actual conclusion of one of the most dangerous people on the web, an international transgender activist that some of you all may know as Keffals. Now, Keffals is not necessarily a popular activist. They're an online transgender activist known for fighting against the controversial website Kiwi Farms. Her campaign saw mainstream attention after a highly publicized swatting, where she alleged mistreatment by the Canadian Police Services. The online harassment escalated until she was forced to flee her home country to escape. With the media and an entire community backing her, she raised over $100,000 on GoFundMe to recoup her losses and pursue legal action against law enforcement. This is the story the public heard all the way up in 2022. Turns out her entire career and almost everything she said is a lie. Join me as I take you down a...
I'm just pausing right there. I felt like that was a little extreme because I think we're actually going to get into some details with like the swatting and stuff where there's a charitable interpretation. But did you have anything that you wanted to do?
I fully agree with that. I fully agree. Let's get to it.
Okay.
A journey that involves SWAT teams, misgendering, do-it-yourself hormones, cat boys, and a scam many have tried to expose, yet for some reason almost no one is talking about. Before we get into the real meat and potatoes, I should probably explain a bit more about who Keffals is. Her name is Clara Sorrenti, first rose to prominence in a community of another left-wing political streamer named Bosch, garnering a following by posting memes on Twitter. With this notoriety, she began streaming video games on Twitch in March of 2020. Her focus shifted to politics later that year after a wave of anti-trans legislation swept through the United States. She went on to raise $200,000 for a campaign for Southern equality to protect trans youth.
I'm going to pause it right there.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that a good deed washes a bad, right? Like I'm not going to say you can wash one hand with the other. However, I do think it needs to be remarked that if that is a specific charitable organization, if they receive the funds, if she was a smaller streamer, because she only got like, I don't know, 50 to 200 viewers or whatever, especially when she first started, and she was able to leverage her connections in order to raise $200,000 for trans charities. I'm not saying that's specifically where I would want the resources deployed from my moral worldview, but from hers, that makes sense. So do you have anything that you want to say right there?
So I just want to say I looked at working with this particular charity at one point because, you know, as someone who leads a nonprofit, I have to do my due diligence, right? And I got really, really granular about what they were spending their donations on. And don't get me wrong, I think, you know, it seemed to be above board for everything I saw, but I just personally was not convinced it was going to have the impact that I personally wanted to get involved with. So I think that's just what I would say is I think if you're looking for high impact in this space, I think Lambda Legal makes a lot of sense and some other ones. But, you know, I just personally decided to go in a different direction.
Well, so if I'm hearing you correct, you're just saying Campaign for Southern Equality isn't the kind of people that you would pick, but it's
me personally, it's still legit though. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then listen, 200K is a healthy chunk of money, no matter how you spend it. So I think that is, it might not be a dub for chat, but I think that's a dub for Keffals before we get into anything else.
By the end of the year, her Twitter surpassed 10,000 followers, and while most were on board with the activist, others grew very critical of how she used her platform. Clara regularly directed her chat to brigade targets by ratioing them. Ratioing, for anybody who's not terminally online, is when you try to get more likes than the original post in a quote tweet or a reply. This amounted to coordinating with her chat on stream, and even if you blocked her, she would just use alternate accounts to achieve this goal. It was through this that she got into her first real internet beef in early 2022.
Oh boy.
On March 22nd, 2022, Clara had a spat with online notorious agitator Ian Miles Chong. Their back and forth continued for hours as she commanded her viewers to ratio him. Then at around 4:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, her chat was brigaded with hateful messages. Despite the timing, one of her mods would end up blaming someone else, another streamer named Destiny. Destiny is a kind of progenitor of the entire online leftist streaming space. His stream is where both Vosh and Hassan Piker got their start. These people used to be friends, and nowadays, not so much. And that is reflected in their communities. The only evidence implicating Destiny was a quote tweet where he called her cringe. Ooh, the shock. It was posted 2 hours after the raid. Despite this, Clara and her community insisted it was his fault. Once again, there was no evidence he had any involvement, yet she used it as justification to deplatform him. Her first response was to try to get his Twitter mass reported and banned. She set her sights on his Twitch channel, launching what can only be described as a full-fledged character assassination. There are countless examples of her legitimate slander and flat-out lies about Destiny. He detailed the worst of her behavior in an extensive document he published back in 2022.
All right, I'm going to pause it here because, one, I want to compliment Mutahar on his clip selection for Vosh. That is one of my favorite, most animated Vosh clips is the soy chair pounding. That's
my
that's
hope
one of my
is
favorites.
we record this show, both of us will get our own embarrassing clip out there.
Our own soy chair pounding clip. Yeah, perfect. So, all right. So, excellent clip selection. Yes, Destiny is the progenitor of the space in a lot of ways. The beef between him and Keffals, doesn't necessarily make sense. I think that this is another thing that a lot of the people in the commentary community took issue with was the fact that Keffals seemed interested in weaponizing social media in order to take her rivals out. And so that was the no bad tactics, only bad targets kind of thing that they were complaining about. And I actually wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that now that Elon Musk has kind of played an Uno reverse card where you can do whatever the fuck you want on Twitter? And I feel like as a result, YouTube and Twitch have relaxed their TOS policies.
Yeah, it's certainly propagated through the space. It's really tough, Connor, because I think Twitter is certainly more toxic than it used to be. But I also feel that a lot of the trust and safety policies that I advocated really seem to have supercharged a lot of these attitudes that are causing people to, dismantle, say, trans healthcare, right? It really, really upsets conservatives when you can't drop slurs against trans people, even though I was one of the people that helped put that policy into place. So I have really mixed feelings on it, to be honest with you. I think it's it directly led to Elon Musk buying Twitter. That's why he did it. So
I feel like I was right, but in my anti-SJW complaining about big tech censorship having a pendulum effect, I guess. But I actually get very little joy out of it. The reason being is because I think back in 2016, 2017, when I was shitposting, I was literally like, I'm just shitposting. I like black people. I like Hispanic people. I like gay people. I like trans people, whatever. I just want to be able to say fucked up shit because this is the internet and that's what it's there for. And there's a certain amount of like irreverent camaraderie, I think, especially amongst men, where being irreverent is your sense of humor. And if you're thin-skinned, then that's kind of how we exclude you from the group. Yeah. But what happened was with like the nerfing of this language, I mean, I stopped saying the R slur for like a year. And that's one of my favorite words on the planet. So in one respect, it kind of like, I sympathize with people who actually have disabilities. But the truth is, I was never calling a person with a disability a retard, right? Yeah, I was never doing that. What I was doing was somebody was saying something so egregious and so stupid and so misinformed that I wanted them to know with one word that their ideas were beneath consideration. Yeah. And when you lose that word, you actually have to fight them on every single tiny detail. And so that's frustrating. So I'm happy the R slur came back. Do you have any other thoughts?
Let's get going.
Okay. And I'm only going to touch on a few examples because this video is going to be as long as it is. The first thing to point out is she was successful in depriving him of one of his main sources of income. She painted Destiny as transphobic for not supporting trans women competing in sports with cis women. Even if you disagree with this, that doesn't necessarily make Destiny transphobic. It's a fringe pressure point of a much larger, broader issue. It's a highly specific, contentious issue and an unfair characterization of his broader catalog. Regardless, Her labeling garnered enough support to get Destiny banned off of Twitch within 24 hours for hate speech. She immediately took credit, gloating about taking away his primary source of income. Hey, Steve, I just took away your primary source of income. Please leave me alone and stop bullying trans people for content. He picked a fight with me. He got banned. I won. This behavior was not only encouraged, but rewarded with 30,000 new followers that week. An important thing to remember is that if you're banned off Twitch, you cannot appear on the site at all. For the longest time, you couldn't even show his face on screen without getting in trouble. Now that he couldn't defend himself, she spread even more blatant falsehoods. The same day, she baselessly accused Destiny of stealthing, which is secretly removing a condom during sex without the partner's consent. This is generally considered a form of you-know-what, which Clara brings up in her accusation.
They're talking about grape?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to pause there. So we actually don't know. I don't know if you know. Keffals said originally that she did take down Destiny's Twitch or was a part of it, and then she later claimed that she didn't. Did she ever tell you one way or the other whether or not she was actually impactful in that?
So I don't share private conversations. So if Clara never shares any of our private conversations, I won't be doing that. So
Okay.
just can't do that.
Okay. Well, I think just if Miss Clara ever watches this, or if word ever gets back to her, I think it's worth being precise. Now, obviously, like a lot of people are just going to say that you're not being honest no matter what, but I think it is worth being precise in the circumstance, because that is one of the reasons why people have a very strong distaste, is because you basically over, I believe, a debate over trans women in sports. Destiny didn't believe that trans women should be in sports, and as a result, that was allegedly part of the reporting process that got him banned off of Twitch and made him lose $250,000 annually.
Jesus.
I think that made him a little bit angry with the far lefties. I think that that was a part of his anti-left arc, and it did make him triple down on YouTube, which is part of the reason why he's tripled in subscribers on YouTube. So in one way, it's kind of like you're squeezing the water balloon on this side, and then it pops out on the other side. You didn't win in the long term.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Meanwhile, he stealths people, which is legitimately a form of insane shit.
To this day, there has never been any evidence or even an allegation made towards Destiny about this. She walked it back shortly after, which shows just how callous she is towards claims of such a serious nature. But because he was deplatformed, she was able to further a false narrative to her chat, as well as tens of thousands of people on Twitter. They all either assumed she was being honest or didn't care she was slandering him because they had already disliked Destiny. In retrospect, her behavior paints a clear picture of how she would conduct herself in the future. It wasn't long into this drama that Keffals got noticed by the site Kiwi Farms, who started a thread about her on March 26, 2022. Clara quickly tried to guilt Destiny by association, claiming he used the forum and was even friends with the owner. And what was the reasoning? Well, because apparently he has an account is because he was a target on the site since 2017 with his own board. All his posts are arguing with trolls in his own thread. He was also never friends with Null, who is the owner of Kiwi Farms. He has also gone on record to wish him death several times. Null, by the way, wishing death on Destiny.
And this is while he's out, I guess. It's just like he's super gross, and sometimes he says things which are funny or agreeable, and it's like, I wish I could like you, bro, but you're creepy and gross and weird, and your brain's all up, and your shit's all, and you talk like that. So we can't be friends.
I like this picture.
Clara knew this, but intentionally spread a lie.
Well, have you seen Idiocracy too?
Ago on the game StarCraft. When confronted, she admitted, I know, I wanted him to respond to the accusation. It was bait. At this point, I should probably take some time to explain exactly what Kiwi Farms is. Kiwi Farms is an online website dedicated to discussing internet figures. Okay, you probably heard about internet lolcows, people like Chris Chan, Boogie2988, or Daniel Larson.
I want to hit this on the head for Cypher.
Of course.
Destiny isn't that short. You know, I think it is the worst thing. Yeah, so when you see Destiny in person, he is the biggest personality in the room, period. Like, he's just one of those dudes that commands it. Everyone's looking to him. People are like looking at what he's going to say. So it's just literally a situation where height doesn't matter. But I think it blows my mind that dudes evaluate their self-worth based on how tall they are. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I tweeted that the other day. Now, it's easy for me to do as somebody who's 6'4". However, there was a picture of those man surgeries where they literally extend the bones in order to make them taller.
I saw you tweeting about that. Ow.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, you need a manlet max, you need a dwarf max, you need to accept your shortness, and you need to embrace it and find an aesthetic that works for you. Now, again, that's easy for me to say, but I also think that women will. If you're not talented in some areas, but you're talented in other areas, then there will be a woman who will accept that.
Sure.
Yeah. And then also the quote was from the movie Idiocracy. And if you haven't seen that, have you? I asked, and I think you said you haven't seen that. You haven't
I've seen little bits and pieces of it, right? I've
watched the whole thing, obviously. Yeah. So it's about social degeneration because we start consuming stupid crap, and it makes us dumber as a society as a result. So yeah. So all right, let's go.
Legal problems of late. The website's composed of various threads where users effectively congregate to document and follow individuals with a negative lens, okay? Now, we have to acknowledge that Kiwi Farms does allow doxing, okay? On the site, it's permitted to post the personal information of anybody being discussed, including full names, phone numbers, home addresses, hell, even blood type if you can find it, and most other forms of personally identifiable information. It's also a site where anything goes, okay? It's like the Wild West of the internet. You ever try to look up me on some of these threads? You'll probably find Indian and poo in the loo and crazy stuff all day, every day. Kiwi Farms was made back in 2013 by Joshua Connor Moon, also online known as Null. The original purpose of the site was to document internet figure Chris Chan. After they covered Chris Chan initially, it started to change itself and rebrand.
Oh, sorry, did you not know that lore?
Online gossip wikis.
I've tried my best to avoid knowing anything about Chris Chan because it's just happiness destroying. Yeah, I wish them the best. I don't even know what pronouns, so sorry.
No, but actually, I found that interesting that it started as a 4chan board. They didn't like the Chris Chan shit posting, so they made them create their own website. They created their own website, and then it became its own thing. I think that's actually like a relatively interesting history,
so to speak, where they started to cover various individuals like Darkside Phil, Boogie, Wings of Redemption, who all actually have threads. And the site does have a propensity to make threads about transgender individuals. Anti-trans sentiment is banned on a lot of major platforms. And as a result, the site has become a place for those opinions to effectively congregate. Now, again, I want to start off by saying I don't endorse or support that behavior. In fact, I outright condemn it. All right. There's no reason to have any form of hate on the internet.
Okay.
That being said,
pause it. I hate it. Okay. You're right. I condemn this. Blah, blah, blah. There should never be any hate on the internet. That just makes all the stuff he says like lose all credibility for me.
Well, hold on, because you're saying that bigotry or whatever. What does it feel like? Too much of a platitude or something? Or
yeah, it's just like, oh, there should never be any hate on the internet. I mean, the problem with
he means bigotry, I think.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. The problem with Kiwi Farms is not some people making some mean comments on the internet. I'm a public figure. You're a public figure. We're all really used to that, right? The problem with Kiwi Farms is it's posting so much personal information that bleeds over into your real life. Like an example I gave is of people that took pictures of my house from Facebook, and they figured it all out and posted like a diagram of where everything was in the house. And then people planned a mass shooting of it based on that, right? Like it's just...
I want to talk about that for a second.
Go ahead.
So I want to read Niz's donor real quick, and then I want to ask you a serious question about that.
Sure.
So Niz for $5 says, Brianna, look up the Liquid Chris saga. It's the only wholesome part and actually weirdly profound. So I would write
Chris
that
saga. Okay.
Yeah. So write that down. Now, that being said, you mentioned this, I think, in a different stream as well. So there was a specific person they used the layout out of the house in order to describe what they were going to do to you more vividly.
That's right. And then they started sending me stories of, hey, just wanted to let you know, I'm going to set this shrub in front of your house on fire. Then I'm going to break in through this door. I know your dog sleeps here. I'm going to execute him here. I know I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to walk through here. I'm going to execute you in your bedroom. Here's a picture of that. And then I'm going to drag your body to the showers where I'm going to chop you up. I'm going to rape you here. I mean, it was really, really explicit stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying, like, look, I've got a pretty thick skin at this point, but it's not benign. It's not just like mean comments on the internet. It's like legitimately going out and buying extra locks for your house, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think for me that the way that splits for me is I think that some schizophrenic people, they thrive off of the engagement. So if you reply to that in any way whatsoever, they're going to use that as an excuse in order to continue to speak to you in that way. So sometimes I'll just do a block. If I see, a page long of whatever and I see some hostility, it's just instant block. With that level of vivid detail, though, I would borderline involve law enforcement.
I did.
And then what I would say too is there's a temptation for me to shitpost back where it would be like, well, I have a 50-pound dog that's going to alert me to your presence. I made a punji pit, Vietnam style, at that doorway, so you're going to fall into spikes covered in poo, and then I'm going to fillet you alive with razor blades, lemon juice, and hot sauce. So like, but that's like the Marine side is like, that world was fucked up, so we would talk to each other in the most fucked up way possible. Whereas I could see as like a normal human who doesn't want to talk about flaying people alive, that might not be your first move. So,
I mean, I was a very different person 10 years ago. I was a game developer. I wasn't a public figure, and my thinking on this,
law-abiding citizen.
I was normal. I wasn't trying to go out there. And just to be really clear, when I ran for Congress, it really, really changed my mind because I literally had to go sign a form saying I was going to run for office, and like that's intent. Does that make sense to you? That's me choosing to be a public figure, and then it's like, look, this is the First Amendment. If you want to tell me I suck all day long, this is literally the job that I'm signing up for. It didn't bother me as much. So I just think it's a little bit different when, someone is not making that decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think and we haven't really gotten into Keffals getting swatted yet. So I kind of want to save my thoughts for that as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Whatever goes on the site does fall under free speech and is entirely legal, okay? It's somewhat of a misnomer online that apparently doxing somebody is against the law. It is against the law to hack someone's accounts and breach their privacy to obtain their personal information, but that behavior is not encouraged by the site, and of course that behavior is punishable by law. But technically, it is not against the law to post someone's address against their will. As shitty as that sounds, most controversial internet figures have threads on this site.
Okay, pause it for a second, because this is incomplete information. My very good friend...
He did amend it at the bottom, and he said, if it was obtained through public record. He put that in text 100%, at the bottom.
100%. But not just that. My good friend Danielle Citron wrote a really good book on this, Hate Crimes in Cyberspace. And a lot of what happens on Kiwi Farms is a crime. It is a crime to threaten to murder people on the internet, and a lot of other things that they do cross a line. So, depending on how they obtain this information, it is very, very problematic. So I'm just saying the jurisprudence here is a lot more complicated than he is suggesting.
Well, and I feel the Chud logic rebuttal coming out.
Sure.
So the Chud logic rebuttal is that in the threads, public information is posted. And by the way, like pretending that like you're not going to infer that people are going to use this in order to harass people, I think is fucking crazy, but whatever. But if you go to Kiwi Farms and you post, I use this information to harass this person, these are the DMs, lol, 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 lol. Allegedly, I'm not saying, I've never verified this. This is just what Kiwi Farms apologists say. Allegedly, that will catch you a ban.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's correct. I'm saying that's what they say.
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying it actually is a crime to threaten to murder someone on the internet. So there it is.
Well, yeah, and sorry, that struck something in me. So cyber stalking and harassment oftentimes are covered through state communications harassment acts. So for instance, like in the 90s, there was a bunch of statutes that were written for phone harassment because everybody started getting cell phones, and obviously they all had landlines and all that kind of stuff. So people were using star 67 and all that to do crazy shit back in the 90s and the thousands. So there are cyber stalking and phone stalking statutes that cover harassing communications, which can be across state lines. The problem is a lot of them are written at the state level. So
That's right.
getting a local municipality
That's right.
to take the crime, identify an individual who lives someplace else, and then prosecute it, and then create a warrant for their arrest, you're talking about a tall order that is almost impossible to fulfill.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
All right.
Information, but they collect any piece of content, tweets, and documents that they post online. So early on, Clara blamed the thread's creation on Destiny, saying he was the reason they found out about her. Later, she admitted it was her constant instigating that actually caught their attention.
How did the Kiwi Farm stuff even start? They noticed me because I started doing Twitter ratios.
Can I point out that this is one of the times that Mutahar makes statements that are not mutually exclusive?
How do you mean?
So, for instance, let's say that Keffals says that, like, oh, how did the Kiwi farmers find me? And in one thing, she's saying, I was talking shit to Destiny. As a result, I got blown up on Destiny's shit. Kiwi farmers found me. They created a threat, right? That might not be specifically blaming Destiny. That could be a statement of like the timeline and the social media attention that got her where she got, right? And then with this one, she's saying, well, I was doing a bunch of ratio shit, and then that's what got their attention.
Oh,
those
okay.
statements are not mutually exclusive. So
Yeah.
this is kind of being, and by the way, like, this isn't me saying that Keffals has always told the truth 100%. She's the most virtuous person I know. I'm not saying that shit. But I am saying that you're taking two statements that are not necessarily contradictory, and then you're making them sound contradictory, even though they're not,
Yeah.
and they could be potentially explained. And that actually happens a few times in this episode. So I want to point them out when they pop up.
And they went from getting mad about Twitter ratios to digging up every single thing in the last 28 years of my life, looking for more reasons to be mad at me.
Again, hypocrisy and misstatements are going to be rife in this video. After Destiny got banned from Twitch, the owner of Kiwi Farms discussed their feud on their podcast. The episode was streamed live on March 25th. Clara reacted on Twitter, calling him the final boss of transphobes and proclaiming she wouldn't back down. I have done nothing wrong, nor will I be going anywhere. Her thread was created the next day, racking up page after page scrutinizing her early life and online history. That included rumors of embezzling funds from her local Communist Party chapter for opiates and a supposed Discord server called the Catboy Ranch. It was posted alongside her and her family's personal information, which understandably made her very upset. Clara spoke out about this, which led many people who'd been similarly targeted to join her in solidarity. This began what eventually became #DropKiwiFarms. #DropKiwiFarms was a movement to get the site taken off the internet. They specifically went after service providers like Cloudflare, who provided DDoS protection and mitigation services. They argued Kiwi Farms was a stalking and harassment site that bullied people into taking their own lives. However, this largely picked up after her story received widespread mainstream coverage. For a while, her focus stayed on trying to bludgeon Destiny with their reputation. On July 18th, Keffals announced a tell-all about Destiny's association with the site. This backfired because her thumbnail used a picture of Destiny's face, violating Twitch's policy on banned streamers. Her channel got banned before she could even start, forcing her to stream on YouTube.
I think it's been reversed since then. So I think the reason why it's been reversed is because Hassan Piker started React-Andying to Destiny content. And so as a result, they were like, oh, one of our biggest streamers started React-Andying to a banned streamer. We can't enforce this anymore. And then also, I think so many people have left Twitch that they started loosening up on these rules, even if they didn't change the TOS itself. So
That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I've Andy to ban streamers in the past, and I haven't got caught. But to be honest, I normally have like 8 people on Twitch anyways, so it is what it is. Although I do want to say, this is our first time back. We've broken 100 cross-platform multiple times, so we're at 99 right now. But we hit like 110, 105, 103, 102. We're creeping up, so it's good times.
Love it.
All right, let's keep going.
YouTube instead. The attention only incentivized Kiwi Farms to keep prodding, and a week later, she fell victim to an attempted swatting. The incident has made public on the 9th of August in a video titled, "My Life is in Danger, I Need Your Help." Clara explained that 4 days earlier, on August 5th, she woke up to police services pointing an assault rifle at her face.
On August 5th, I was woken up by London police services pointing an assault rifle in my face.
A letter had been emailed to every city council member in London, Ontario, threatening a mass. Clara was arrested, booked, and held in custody for 11 hours. They searched her apartment and confiscated several devices. They allegedly misgendered her and even booked her under her dead name. If you're unaware, dead naming refers to using a prior name for a trans person generally associated with the gender they were assigned at birth. This worsened an already traumatic experience she considered a hate crime. The video is posted alongside a GoFundMe with the stated intent of helping Clara recoup her losses, move immediately, and build a legal fund to protect her rights.
Can you pause it there for a second?
Yes, I actually, and I also want to write it down too. Recoup losses, move
build
immediately.
A legal fund.
Move immediately. And build legal fund. Okay, I'm just writing those down because there's like accusations of hypocrisy, which some are warranted and some aren't. But yeah, did you have any comments that you wanted to hit right now?
No, I just wanted to make really sure what she was claiming to do. I donated to this. I can't remember if it was 200 or 100, but I did donate.
Yeah, and then I have been emotional damages, financial damages, violations of the HRA, and discrimination based off of gender identity.
Okay. If the goal is met,
expression.
and I will have raised enough to recoup my losses and move immediately to a safe location. If the goal is exceeded, funds will be allocated to a legal fund to protect myself and ongoing future threats to my safety. Does it say anything else? Can we go forward?
We can do that. Let me just see if that's specifically legal or not. Of course, like this isn't like a binding contract, which I think is like an insane thing to expect. Sure. But I want to make sure that I have it down because there's going to be these accusations of hypocrisy. And by the way, if you're hearing me say this and you think that I'm defending, I'm not saying that she didn't foolishly spend the money in ways that were not expected by the audience. However, I think that if you're going to accuse her of violating the GoFundMe, we should establish what she stated and then what she did. So hold on. There was something you said that I wanted, but it's okay. Oh, you just read it. If the goal is met, recoup my losses and move immediately. If the goal is exceeded, funds will be allocated to
It received widespread media attention, bringing in over $100,000 in donations. Even with their support, however, it seemed like there was no escape. Trolls kept figuring out her location as she was forced into hiding, and her battle against Kiwi Farms continued. Even after fleeing the continent, eventually she was successful in getting the site dropped by Cloudflare, who cited an imminent threat to human life. Without their protection, Kiwi Farms became vulnerable to illegal denial of service attacks and was forced to shut down. Now, this is the story that the public was led to believe. Concluding a successful campaign, Keffals reiterated over and over that the site had been shut down. It only became more difficult to insist as time had gone on, given it's obviously not true. Kiwi Farms is up to this day, and by all metrics, it has way more stability than ever before. And what many of her supporters don't realize is that this is truly the beginning of the web of lies that make up this entire ordeal. Almost everything you've heard about this whole situation is a lie. And that's why I'm going to explore in depth in these next two sections. These are two very important aspects to the story to address her portrayal of the swatting and how exactly the money was spent.
Okay. We have a dono from Determinatus. For $5, he says, came for the lol, stay for Brianna and Connor, fostering the radical centrism we all need. True.
Thank you so much.
We will be doing that. Nobody will have a good time tonight because we are going to be doing centrism on a topic in which nobody wants centrism. But that is what we are doing tonight. So yeah.
100%.
So we wrote those things down. One of the things, though, that I want to point out, because this is what commentary had a problem with. So, or at least Chud does. Chud is actually like a very fervent First Amendment guy, despite being British. I actually admire his passion about free speech and the internet and all that kind of stuff. So his the crux of his criticism,
really everything he's done despite being British, is very inspirational.
It is. Actually, it's great. But good for him. The fuck. So his very visceral disgust with trying to take down Kiwi Farms the way that it was done was because it wasn't through showing evidence of cyber stalking and cyber harassment and Kiwi Farms encouraging this behavior and then filing to a legal entity to either fine, sanction, or take down the website. It was through attacking Kiwi Farms' corporate partners, opening the website to DDoS attacks. Yeah. So to him, this seemed like a faulty premise bordering on a lie in order to eliminate private partners in order to commit criminal actions in order to take down the website. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, by that logic, wouldn't something like Check My Ads be like having the same criticism? So these are some people that they don't like what Breitbart puts out there, and they basically go after Breitbart's advertisers, right? I don't think it's crazy to point out when people are standing by statements that may not be the best. So I don't know. That just seems like a free speech issue from my point of view.
Well, and I guess the question is, from your perspective. So for me, I'm more sympathetic to the free speech perspective with like, we should use legal means in order to take down people who we believe are committing criminal actions, or we should change legislation in order to go after them. What is your perspective on free speech? Because you mentioned how the information was being used in a criminal way.
Right.
Do you think that Kiwi Farms itself is like a criminal enterprise, or do you think it's like a criminal enterprise enabler?
I think that's an overstatement. I think, like, my strategy with Kiwi Farms was always, I think that if you make it very expensive to do the wrong thing, you'll make people do the right thing. So I always thought that, civil liability should be pursued for, some of the civilly opening actions that they were taking, because they are a vector for those things. But, if they just want to be a website like using transphobic slurs and making fun of people and cataloging tweets autistically, like, that's a free speech issue. I've got zero issue with that.
Well, then I guess that's my question, because I don't know how you would enforce or prove that. So for instance, let's say that you have a bunch of profiles on there of public creators and they have the publicly listed addresses. And then let's say that somebody does cyber stalking, but they use a VPN or they use a phone blocker or something like that. So you can't specifically track who is attacking you, so to speak. Yeah. So in that case, would they become the presumed culprit because they're the most public known vector of cyber harassment, or would that just not be provable because you can't prove that the harassment came from them?
I mean, this is what the Section 230 argument is about, right? So, I think if you subpoena them and they're not giving over information on people, I think that's where the problem is. All this stuff is very, very complicated, right?
Okay.
So I don't have strong feelings about it.
Okay, then I'll read Cole G's donation. Thank you for the donos, guys. We actually we have gotten quite a few tonight, so I do appreciate it.
Very sweet.
It just hit me. You know who Keffals sounds like? The top 15's channel presenter, the Burger King foot lettuce video. It's the exact same cadence. Everything's just a little off. I don't know if that's insulting or complimentary. Considering the source, it might be insulting. However, at least you're done.
It is Burger King, so I think we can assume derogatory. I think that's fair.
Oh, geez.
Are you a Burger King guy or McDonald's guy?
Oh, McDonald's over Burger King all day. Are you kidding me? Whoppers Whoppers can either be phenomenal or they are soggy water trash. And that is like every Burger King that I've ever been to. It's either really good or it's really bad. Whereas
There's something
McDonald's
about
is
that taste.
trash.
Yeah. Oh, it's bad.
But you
It's bad.
but you know what you're getting every single time. It's predictable trash.
Yes.
I don't want to go to a Burger King and be like, oh, this could be good or it could be terrible, and there's no in between. That
I couldn't
sucks.
agree more. I couldn't agree more. There's something about Burger King, that sauce that tastes like sweat. And I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and that's not my vibe, so hard pass. But yeah, so hold on. Now my dog is crawling onto my computer, and I do not want him to knock my internet.
Okay. Go ahead.
So sorry, we can continue in a second. Okay. But I want to make this point because this is an important point, and we might not be able to finish this video tonight because I just know that we like to yap, right? So the Kiwi Farms is back and stronger than ever. You, as an actor in the real world, you do not base your actions off of the final consequence. You base it off of a good faith interpretation of the situation on the ground as is.
Mhm.
And as Chud has said many times, Keffals' attacks on Kiwi Farms was massively inconvenient to the website. First, they thought they weren't going to get dropped by Cloudflare. Then they were. Then they got DDoSed for a few weeks to a month. Then they had to switch service providers. Then I think their service providers dropped them again. And then I think they had to go up and down 3 or 4 times. So the ultimate result of getting Kiwi Farms permabanned from the internet might not have been achieved. However, Keffals was a huge pain in the ass to the website, and she fought as far as she could. I think the only thing that she could have done differently were literally criminal actions.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that? Because I feel like people
think
talk
that's a
shit about
good
Keffals on that
interpretation.
grounds,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, I feel where you're coming with that. I think that's really good faith. I want to read a super chat that we got here. This is from Christian Valeris. Hope we get to finish the rest of Destiny versus JonTron one day. I feel like I got more immigrant memes in me. I don't know what this means. Help me understand this.
This is for me. So last week, I took a few weeks off in order to do my Bolter project. Last week, I got really excited and I streamed a few times. And I did content that I'm probably going to continue to do, which is called Too Long Didn't Watch. So I went back and I watched the Destiny versus JonTron debate. We watched the first hour of it. I am going to go back and do it. Yeah. And I was taking notes the entire time. I was following the arguments.
I will watch this. That sounds great.
Yeah. It was good. And I mean, it's posted to the COUNTERFIRE channel. So if any of you guys are interested, go check it out. And the goal is to watch the debates, get all of the notes from the debates, and then do like a 10-minute summary. That way, if you don't want to watch the entire thing, you can get all the drama in 10 or 20 minutes. So, all right, I'm going to stop yapping. Let's continue.
When it comes to something as serious as swatting, it's important not to downplay its severity. This is a crime that's taken innocent people's lives. But curiously, her story began to change as time went on. The narrative set forth in her initial video is one of terror. Clara says on the 5th of August, she is awoken by police services pointing an assault rifle at her face. This specific detail is referenced in her video several times.
On August 5th, I was woken up by London police services pointing an assault rifle in my face at my home. When I was woken up by police officers and saw the assault rifle pointed at me, I thought I was going to die. I feel traumatized.
Her story then changed to an encounter in the hallway. The exact phrasing is that she went into the hallway and then saw the weapon.
The email, Sorrenti says, had given out her real address and resulted in police with guns at her doorstep and her being arrested.
When I went into the hallway and then saw that assault rifle, I screamed and I thought I was going to die.
A month later,
All right,
she
can we
admitted that
pause
they
actually?
didn't enter her
So
apartment.
Yes.
frustrates me. This frustrates me because number one, I've had people do this to me, right? You pick apart something you say off the cuff, and none of us can. First of all, she's dealing with trauma. I think she authentically had trauma from this experience, and I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say it took her a while to put all of this together. And secondly, those two statements are not mutually exclusive. So I don't know. I think
No, I'm going to back you up on this. Everybody's going to hate it, but I'm going to back you
Yes.
up on this. So, okay. If I'm describing my day to someone, let's say that I woke up and I got some coffee, right? Now, the implication of I woke up to assault rifles in my face is we all have like the movie scenario where like a bad guy or a good guy wakes up and they actually have guns pointed in their face, right? But if I say I woke up and got coffee, that could mean two things. That could mean I went to my kitchen and brewed my coffee, or I went to Starbucks. But guess what? Those are two wildly different scenarios described by very simplistic terms. So I woke up and I got an assault rifle put in my face. Later in this episode, just in case we don't get to it, she says that they called, or her partner says, they called her name from the exterior of the house. She had to put on clothing. I think we might actually just get into this. And then she came out into the hallway and then she saw the rifle. She was taken into custody. Now, for me, as a former law enforcement officer, if I was dealing with an active shooter suspect and, we had reason to believe that it might not be them, but at the same time, we have to treat it as a serious scenario, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my rifle. I'm going to be posted up from cover, which means that I will be behind the doorway.
Yep.
And I'll be aiming down the hallway. And if let's say we have the partner come out first, we're going to have the partner come out first, and then we're going to call out to the person to come out, right? So if they don't come out, then at that point, we might call SWAT, we might surround the building, we might go in, depending on the scenario. But we're going to hold that hallway until that person comes out. And when that person comes out, we're going to command them to walk to us. That way we're not going into a potential danger area where there could be other angles that you can't necessarily cover. And so it is entirely possible. I'm not saying this is the truth. I'm not saying Keffals is an honest actor. I am saying it is entirely possible that she heard from her partner that cops were at the door. She was groggy. She put on her pajamas. She heard her name called. She walked out to the hallway and she saw an officer pointing a weapon down the hallway. And that was scary enough.
Right.
And by the way, I've been in situations with guns before. When people have guns that you don't know whether or not they're going to shoot you, that is scary. It's fucking scary. So it's okay. And I have like a decade of training too. So just acting like this is like absolutely nothing, I think is stupid and misinformed.
So, but the other part of this I find really frustrating. Let me tell you a super quick story. So, I'm sure we all saw the drama with Zonia last week. So, I had a really stressful call with Zonia this weekend, right? And I was getting off the phone with her as I was going off, and I go, okay, God, I've got to go talk to Jesse Single. Right. Because their team had emailed me. Right. So if you want to get really specific, I wasn't actually talking to Jesse Single. I was talking to Katie, his co-host. I just thought it was more likely that Zonia would know who Jesse Single was. Right. And technically I wasn't talking to Katie. She'd emailed me. But I'm not misrepresenting anything. It's just common speech, right? I'm just trying to say something off the cuff. The problem with the commentary space is you can make a statement like that is true. It's just a little inaccurate because that's how people talk. And it gets picked apart forever. Oh my God, you're a liar. You do this, you do that, blah, blah, blah. And it's just is so exhausting. Can we just assume this much? Can you assume people are telling you the truth until they prove to you otherwise? Do you know what I mean?
Well, and you don't have to be that charitable. Right. There is a way that we could verify this. It's just that nobody is going to take the time and energy to do so.
100%.
So we are not going to call. I'm not going to. I don't know about y'all. I'm not going to call LPS. I'm not going to ask for the officers on scene. I'm not going to ask to talk to the people who made contact. I'm not going to ask them to walk through the arrest. And I'm not going to call Keffals' former partner in order to verify this. But what I'm also not going to do is I'm not going to just say that, so there's dishonesty over here, right? Let's say that there's some dishonesty in the way that the money was spent.
Sure.
I'm not going to say that it wasn't fucking scary for somebody to pretend to be a mass shooter in your name and then have cops order you out of your own home, presumably at rifle point. And by the way, even if people got pissed, even if commentary got pissed, even if Destiny got pissed or whatever, they're calling this sweeping, whatever, I don't think that they can prove it in the inverse direction. I don't think that they can say definitively that even somebody in chat mentioned this. They were like, oh, I don't think Canada does dynamic entry, or they don't do dynamic entry as much as the United States. I wasn't talking about a dynamic entry. I was talking about a knock and announce. Knocking on somebody's door and saying, hey, you come out. That can still have a cop with a rifle standing by on the hallway in case things go sideways. And by the way, sorry, end of rant, but if the Canadian police officer was dealing with a mass shooting suspect and they didn't have a rifle ready to go, then they're an idiot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it cuts both ways. All right, I'm ready. You ready?
Let's do it.
Till after she was in custody.
They did not go into my apartment until after I was in custody, and they had a search warrant signed.
These next few clips are of Alex, her fiance at the time. Alex confirms she didn't wake up with a gun in her face and reveals Clara wasn't even the one to answer the door. They spoke to Alex first, who was already awake, and gave Clara enough time to put on pajamas.
So it wasn't quite that they knocked on the door and I answered. Rather, I was getting ready for the shower and there was a tremendous pounding. And so, yeah, someone did not wake her with a rifle pointed 3 inches from her face. But essentially, as soon as she woke up,
Was I in a state of undress? I was naked and I had to put on a pair of pajamas that was like on the floor before I could even go out to see the police officers.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody is new here, but I just want to re-describe what I described earlier. If I wake up and I say, I woke up, I went and got coffee. That can mean I went to my kitchen and I got coffee and I brewed it myself, or that can mean I went to Starbucks. Those are two wildly physically different events that are described by the same sentence. So if you're saying I woke up with a gun in my face, obviously a lot of people are going to presume that you literally woke up with your eyes opening and then there was a gun in your face. That's what people are going to assume. But if you went through that, let's say that you got robbed, it wasn't cops, and you walked into the hallway and there was a robber there and you had just woken up, I would be charitable enough to say, yeah, you woke up and you had a gun put in your face.
Yeah.
So I feel like at some point this is just autism.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
but in ACAB, Badasoy, I'm sorry, I'm not like intentionally trying to talk shit, but you were asking a question that was like very specifically to the point of what we talked about for the past 10 minutes. All right, sorry, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
See, the story has already morphed significantly from Clara waking up to guns in her face, to seeing guns in the hallway, to police never entering the apartment at all. The lack of consistency is concerning, given she was supposed to be taking legal action against them. And I mean, Keffals went so far as to compare herself to a victim of police brutality.
Okay, sorry, let's pause here. I will concede to Mutahar that point that if you are taking legal action, you want to be specific with your words,
Sure.
right? Especially in like written deposition. How do you feel about this tweet?
I think that when Gamergate happened, I said a lot of incredibly stupid stuff. So I see this through charity where you're upset, you're traumatized, everybody's yelling at you, you're getting death threats, and you compare it to things as less than artful. So I don't like it, but I understand why she said this.
I will specifically say what I don't like, so I don't get accused of sweeping, so to speak.
Yes.
So every time I see another story involving an innocent black man being killed by police, I think back to last month when I had an assault rifle pointed at me by police and how easily that situation could have escalated if I wasn't white. I hope Elijah McClain finds justice. Elijah McClain, I could be corrected, so if anybody wants to correct me, go ahead. I feel like Elijah McClain was the gentleman who was walking down the street with his hands in his hoodie listening to music. He was choked out by a law enforcement officer, and then EMTs administered ketamine to him, and that killed him. I don't think he was shot. I don't think a gun was pointed at him, so the situation isn't analogous. And also, I'm just going to say that maybe not all the time, because I don't think we can account for all the time, but I'm going to say a majority of the time, law enforcement officers are not making their decisions on whether or not they're going to shoot based off of the race of the person as the sole variable or even the primary variable.
There was a study
So-
that came out that showed that's true, actually. It was, I believe, at Harvard, and it wasn't what even the researcher himself found. And he was stunned by that. And there was actually a lot of internal pressure not to publish those findings. So,
well, and also just use with this scenario specifically, if her partner, Miss Clara's partner, had not come out first, if she wasn't compliant, if Clara herself hadn't like acknowledged that she was coming out according to the orders, if she had come out with some like object in her hand and she had been really furtive with it, where she was pointing it at the police, there's a very real chance that she could have gotten killed in that scenario. So,
100%.
So just because, cops don't just see people pointing objects at them and they're like, well, they're white, so I'm not going to shoot. That's not how cops work. Jesus Christ, Connor, right on the money. Well, thank you. I was expecting more pushback from Chad on that, but I appreciate it. So I always found Cole G says, hey, baby boy. Cole G says, I always found Keffals pretty benign, to be honest, at least until the whole Claire's $100,000 cocaine party. Rude. That's pretty scummy. Listen, we were over this before. It's a $65,000 cocaine party. $35,000 of the GoFundMe are accounted for.
$65,000 on cocaine.
Yeah, it's a $65,000 cocaine party. We want to be specific.
Allegedly.
Every time I see another story involving an innocent black man being killed by the police, I think back to last month when I had an assault rifle. Dog, whatever you think about the interaction, it is by no means comparable to what happened to Elijah McClain. And the fact that she can't keep her story straight just makes this so much more worse. Clara also claimed police were transphobic and booked her under a dead name. If you're unaware, dead naming again refers to using a prior name for a trans person generally associated with the gender they were assigned at birth.
During the arrest, the police officer referred to me by my dead name. I was booked in the station under my dead name. The police, when talking to my mother, referred to me as her son. The fact that a fake email led to London Police Services booking me under my dead name reveals the prejudice that many police have towards transgender people. This is despite the fact that the email contained my real name before ever even mentioning my dead name. This is one of the property bags returned to me after I was released from custody. All of the property bags returned to me have Roberts written on them. Roberts was my last name until I legally changed my name first to Kaylee Sorrenti on January 25th, 2012.
On August 11th, London Police Chief Steve Williams put out a statement regarding some of her accusations. He states that all activity in the holding cells is monitored by audio and video equipment. They reviewed the footage and found no evidence of Miss Sorrenti being addressed by her dead name and gender. Williams concluded her dead name was used on property bags due to the existence of a prior police report, explaining that it was literally for tracking purposes. He apologized and ensured a solution would be implemented to prevent any of this in the future. Claire responded to the statement by reiterating her dead name was used during the arrest. She even speculated the timing may have been intentional so they wouldn't get caught.
It's important that he said, well, I cannot confirm any conversations which might have transpired during Miss Sorrenti's initial arrest. And that's when it happened. The activity in the holding cells is monitored. And I never made a statement about any bad things that happened while I was in custody. I would absolutely assume that when the police know that these things are being recorded and can be part of public record, they would be more careful with how they go about their business.
All right, can we pause?
I was going to say, people objected to that, and that's true.
I have a really big problem with this. Okay, I understand it is painful to get dead named, but at the same time, cops, if you spend any time around cops, the idea that they're going to be sitting there like, oh, let's like it's just not the culture. Like, they've got legal documents in front of them. The computer systems are a mess. they're working on reports of what, like, the person that swatted her said, and to like really attribute like malice for this here, even if it happened. I mean, it's messy being a trans person. Like, getting healthcare is humiliating. Going into records is humiliating. Like, having your old school photos come up is humiliating. And there's just, I don't know. It feels, I understand being upset about it, but I think you got to have a thicker skin than this.
You countered my counter before I even countered. So so you bringing up the fact that it's not intentional, I agree with. Like, cops, on the scale of things, they are not scheming in order to dead name you, right?
No.
They have other things that are going on. However, the statement by itself, the statement in a vacuum of cops are more careful when they're in areas that are being recorded, that's absolutely true. I had a body camera the entire time I was serving, but if we wanted to talk shit about each other or a suspect or the police chief or somebody, then yeah, you better we're not doing that in the holding cell, and we're also not doing that with body cameras on. So basically, like, the presumption that cops don't talk shit, I think, is wrong. But I also agree with you that would not be a priority. It wouldn't be this magical conspiracy theory in order to get one in on the trans because we just wanted to say their dead name in order to screw with them. Very unlikely in my experience.
I just, Connor, I've never been around cops as much, but I did grow up in a military family. And I'm sorry, people that serve in the military just have a dark sense of humor. Right? They've got, a lot of them are dealing with PTSD. They come up with offensive nicknames for stuff. They talk about themselves in very irreverent terms. It's just a culture, right? And I just think, like, taking every bit of that, like, when you allow yourself to be hurt by every little thing, right? This is my serious, like, suggestion for anyone out there that's trans, right? You're giving away your power if you let this stuff get to you. So I understand it hurts. I understand that the policy should be that this doesn't happen. But at a certain point, if you're weak and this stuff really affects you, you're not going to go far. There's nothing fair about being a trans person. So like, don't let them take your power from you.
Well, and I want to ask you, just because you and I committed to going to from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Once a week, preferably on Wednesdays, sometimes on Thursdays.
We'll go a little later today. I'm having a good time.
Okay, excellent. Then please give me like a 5 or 10 minute warning when you're feeling like you're tapping out.
Sounds good.
I don't expect them to acknowledge how bad the situation actually was. And there's no way of verifying it besides first-person testimony because there's no body cams in the London Police Service.
Which, by the way, that's a problem. So just want to say that every cop, every municipality, I don't care if it's in Timbuktu or London, they should all have body cams.
Yeah.
Own partner then contradicts the claim that she was dead named during the address, though alludes to unspecified misgendering that occurred. Once again, any instance after the arrest should have been captured on recording.
And they yelled at Clara while she was in bed. So she got up. They were saying Clara Sorrenti. Note they did not use her dead name at this point either.
As far as I know, is there anything I missed, Alex?
I think that's really the main gist of the arrest portion, which was really the most traumatic in terms of, having the guns pointed at us, the misgendering that occurred. Yeah, that whole arrest. That is how it happened. It wasn't straight up dynamic entry. They didn't.
The absence of
Kim, I just think it needs to be reiterated, even if we don't get into detail, these are not mutually exclusive statements.
Nope.
So saying when a police officer is at the doorway, let's say I'm the officer, we threw the door open, we got the partner outside, I'm holding the hallway, and somebody says, Clara Sorrenti, come out with your hands up, whatever. That is not mutually exclusive to an officer then detaining you, and this actually comes up later, and putting you in handcuffs and then using a different name, considering there's 2 names used in the email. So this is unspecific, but it's not mutually exclusive.
Evidence means that this only remains a he said, she said scenario.
True.
But it's hard to take Clara's word at face value given her complete and total lack of credibility. Another key part of her story was that police had confiscated their devices, resulting in significant financial damages.
They seized both my personal and work phone, as well as the work computer that I broadcast on Twitch from. Not only that, but the police seized my fiance's cell phones and laptop, as well as their external drive, which contained the only copy of their PhD thesis and other important university documents. Because of the negligence of the police, we were both
You
left
pause it.
functionally
Stop right.
unemployed.
This is from Jonah Boy. Stop right there, criminals to come. What are your pronouns? I like this. Reboot RoboCop for 2024 with all of this.
I was about to say, I can see Canadian police literally doing that. So, yeah, so they, man, so I just want you guys to pay attention because there's an energy here, which I'm okay with, by the way. I was never friends with Keffals. Brianna was friends with Keffals. So I don't have like a specific reason to like sweep. Keffals is not paying me. Brianna's not paying me. So basically, like, some of these statements are said as mutually exclusive and they're just not. So just pay attention.
Yeah.
But I do want her to get through the electronics so we can talk about the electronics.
I agree.
And I have spent thousands of dollars replacing our computers and cell phones.
And this was one of her justifications to launch the GoFundMe, to recoup her losses.
I started a GoFundMe to move immediately, recoup my losses, and build a legal fund to protect my rights.
But there were no losses to recoup. The devices were returned after 3 days.
I eventually got my stuff back in like 3 days and got an apology from the chief of police.
That's nice.
So, yeah, that was really nice. Not nice how they responded to the situation, but I'll take it.
Now, if we're to believe that she meant 3 days after the swatting, that would place it on August 8th, a day before the GoFundMe started. There's also footage of Clara picking up her belongings from the police station, where you can see this property bag. It heavily resembles the property bag seen in her initial video. A close-up of one of the labels shows us a date of August 8th, 2022. This again implies that she got her...
No, hold on. I got to write that down. Actually, I'm probably going to let him finish that sentence, and then we're going to go back.
Stuff back before the video and GoFundMe ever even went live, and knowingly lied about needing to buy a new cell phone and computer. Even if you don't want to make that assertion, at best, she got her stuff back the next day. Because
okay, this is actually pretty important. So the report date is the 8th of August, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, do we know the SWAT date?
I don't know that off the hand.
Okay, I'm actually going to open a new tab and Google it real quick because I just feel like it's important even if I slow down the momentum of the stream.
Yeah, go ahead.
What Clara Sorrenti swatted by police. So the story was written on the 11th. And they're just saying earlier this month. Leading up to the August 5th incident. Okay. Okay. So this, I think Mutahar's assessment is correct, but I just want to make a statement. So they're saying August 5th was the date that the swatting occurred. This says report date August. That says 8, right? Like I'm going blind, but I think that's August 8th, 2022.
Yep, it says August 8th.
What's weird to me about that is if you put like release date or something like that, then I would think that that would be like when she got her stuff back. But at the same time, like report date is when the report is generated. So did law enforcement sit on her equipment for 3 days? Did it take them 3 days to process? That doesn't make much sense to me. Typically reports are processed same day. So that's weird as hell. And then also the equipment being released wouldn't necessarily be all the equipment at once. So let's say that we take clothing. Let's say that we take, I don't know, personal, we take cell phones, we take computers, we take whatever. Different stuff is going to have different timelines for processing. So if you take a piece of clothing for DNA, I'm not saying they did that. I'm just using it as a hypothetical. that could be, let's say that you find out that you're not filing charges, that could be returned within a few days.
Sure.
But if you're doing forensics, like digital forensics, that could take months. And
that makes sense. Yeah.
So I'm borderline wondering if they knew that there was going to be public pressure related to this incident, and they were like, hey, this is top of the shelf priority. Check this shit to see whether or not the email came from here. And if it didn't, we're releasing the property back.
Yeah.
That's my suspicion.
Sense. I think that's probably true.
Yeah. And then let's say that it was released the next day or whatever. Again, you have to act on the information you have at the time. So if Keffals is staring down the barrel of, because at that point, she knows she's innocent of the swatting, but she doesn't know whether or not the police are going to believe her. She also doesn't know if somebody like ghosted some shit onto her computer. So for all she knows, her stuff, I think she even mentions that she was told by her lawyer to expect the property to not be returned. Mm-hmm. So if she made a move replacing cell phones, both of which are probably iPhones or Androids, those are probably $1,000 each under contract. If you do an early upgrade, you can get them for $20 or $30 a month, but they're $1,000 each. And then same thing with a laptop or a computer. A good laptop or a computer is going to be $500 to $1,000. So at minimum, just between 2 cell phones and 2 computers, you're talking about $3,000. Yeah. On a low level, $4,000 at the high level.
Yeah. If I replaced mine, that would be a little higher. So.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that, for instance, Mutahar brings up that if she got her stuff back, she should have updated the GoFundMe or whatever. But again, that's not like the biggest thing to me. If she already dropped $4,000 on replacing her stuff, that doesn't seem like a huge lie.
Look, and she's got this opportunity to replace her stuff. I actually don't begrudge her for upgrading her computer, right? I mean, it's her livelihood. I just don't care about that personally. But y'all can make your own assessment.
If she had a Nokia brick phone, she has to replace it specifically with a Nokia brick phone. And if it's a $200 Chromebook, she has to replace it with a $200 Chromebook. And like, that's kind of like the absurdity of the situation for me, right? Is people are earnestly expecting that.
Yeah.
They are earnestly expecting her to replace what she lost like for like. And I don't know if there's any obligation to do that.
Yeah, but I completely agree. I think it's silly.
All right, let's move on.
It implies that she got her stuff back before the video.
Sorry, my internet is loading. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And GoFundMe even went live, and knowingly lied about needing to buy a new cell phone and computer. Even if you don't want to make that assertion, at best, she got her stuff back the next day, because this upload is dated August 10th. There is no way to reconcile these statements. In either way, it was dishonest to never update that campaign to reflect this.
He's relying on that
because of the
statement.
negligence of the police. We were both left functionally unemployed. And I have spent thousands of dollars replacing our computers and cell phones, so our lives aren't completely destroyed by what happened to us.
Now, Keffals launched her GoFundMe on August 9, 2022 with an initial goal of $20,000. The page claims that if this amount was exceeded, the funds would be allocated to a legal fund to protect herself against ongoing and future threats to her safety. However, this was later changed to, I am keeping the GoFundMe up, but all donations are going directly to my legal fund, which I will be using to seek justice. Now, this is a very, very important distinction, because it means all the donations past the first $20,000 were explicitly for legal action. See, Clara gradually kept raising the goal until it reached over $100,000 on the 20th. If you want to be technical, it actually never ended, because she's still taking donations to this day. In fact, there wasn't even a fixed amount, which is odd, as it makes it seem like her goal was to basically raise as much money as possible rather than afford an intentional expense. Naturally, with her effort raising over $100,000, there were questions over how the money was spent. Claire has tried to poison the well numerous times by calling anyone who asks this question bad faith. I'll never do a GoFundMe breakdown for bad faith actors who neither support me nor contributed to the fund in the first place. Well, what if I gave money? Am I now allowed to ask? Ooh.
That was cute. You didn't like that? I thought that was funny.
No, it was great. I'm just going, Keffals, what you doing, girl? What are you doing?
Okay,
If
okay.
you make a statement, all the money here is going to go for legal funds. You should watch legal fund.
Well, we are okay. So I already know I'm going to get accused of sweeping, right? This is the part of the takedown piece or whatever that I absolutely agree with. Is particularly with the allegations of financial impropriety or whatever. Transparency here is, I don't want to say like needed, because I can't compel anybody to do anything. But it would go a long way, even if it was misappropriated. Having like a firm narrative on what went where and the rationale behind it, I think would be helpful. Which is basically like, I got the computer stuff back on the 11th. I posted the GoFundMe on the 10th. I had already purchased a laptop, a computer, and 2 cell phones. I didn't return them because, frankly, they were upgrades, and I just took the opportunity to refurbish my equipment while I actually had money from GoFundMe people that I'm very thankful for. I did, move here at this time. I spent this amount of money, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I understand that that's the kind of transparency that's required, and not getting it is feeding your opponents.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Do you want to expand, or do you just want to?
I'm good to go. I dropped you the time chat where they get into the miners on HRT discussion. I would love to watch that, because that's an hour 5, and that's what I got yelled at on Beckett's stream for not watching.
Let's do that then, because that you said 1 hour 5.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that, because the just transparency for everybody in the stream, I guess. I think that Mutahar's video is good as a chronology of the events as they were outlined, but I felt like he was saying things that were not mutually exclusive, and he was making it sound like it was mutually exclusive. And so people who were like not paying attention to details would assume that they were mutually exclusive, and therefore assume the worst at every possible turn. However, there is bad shit here. So let's just get into that.
For people to distrust her character. Not only that, but she'll discredit any criticism by associating it with Kiwi Farms, the big bad farms. At the end of the day, if documentation exists, then regardless of that source, it speaks for itself. Keffals will hide behind her identity as a shield, accusing anyone who brings up her genuinely questionable behavior as pedo jacketing. In reality, this is little more than an excuse to avoid accountability. And it's finally time to talk about do-it-yourself hormones and Catboy Ranch. In June of 2022, Claire began sponsoring the DIY HRT directory. For a myriad of reasons, hormone replacement therapy is often inaccessible to many trans people. The directory intends to teach people how to, quote-unquote, safely obtain HRT without a prescription. While some are legitimate pharmaceutical-grade medications simply imported from other countries, the site also offers a number of homebrew sources. They are colloquially referred to as bathtub estrogen, in reference to the actual practice of brewing your own HRT. This guide in particular is linked to Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals, which is also listed on the directory. Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals is extremely controversial, for reasons that will become very self-apparent. The packaging is covered in sexualized depictions of young boys cross-dressing. Again, I have to blur this out because it is actually a violation of YouTube's TOS, with text on the box that reads, "Keep out of reach of parents." It's disgusting and clearly falls under the category of Shota or Loli, which...
That is
it's disgusting. I can't.
One of the DIY HRT vendors known as Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals.
I mean, I can't, it's just, if you have any other, don't take stuff off the internet. It's a bad idea. It's a really bad idea. This stuff, I find this consistently really frustrating about the trans community, to talk about HRT like you're taking fucking Tic Tacs. This stuff it has long-term health effects, right? This is not innocuous. You should go to a doctor, especially if you're a minor.
Yeah. So that's where, I think you brought up so we can continue, but you brought up the fact that you want to create a legal pathway for people in extreme cases who are minors to get it, but that's going to be in concert with the parents, in concert with psychotherapists, in concert with the doctor. And then we basically talked about adult transition, where if you're an adult, then you kind of have to make decisions in line with your doctors, which I think that's a fairly like liberal or libertarian.
Of course it is.
View.
And Connor, I've just got to say this. Like, I know that a lot of trans people are younger and lack a historical perspective on this stuff, but I'm only in my 40s. I am old enough to remember when this stuff was crazy radical, like going to a doctor and being able to transition and like having your genitals changed and having a legal like change of your sex status and being able to get married. Like that was some year 3000 sci-fi shit within my lifetime. And it's just so crazy now to talk about that like it's oppression. It's truly bizarre to me.
Well, Fearmonger wasn't here earlier, and they asked a specific question that I feel like you already asked, or you answered, but I want to make you answer it again. They said, what would you define as extreme cases? So if somebody was under the age of 18, what barriers or hoops would they need to get through for where you think transition is appropriate?
Okay, so I want to give you a really specific answer because I happened to look this up the other day. So if you're trying to define trans, this is not somebody that like thinks they're a girl or just likes to cook or something like that. There's actually a list of criteria. I want to read them to you. This is from the DSM-5. Gender dysphoria is called a marked incongruence between one's expressed gender and natal gender of at least 6 months of duration, manifested by at least 2 of the following. And I would say if you're dealing with minors, you really should have all of these. Like it should be an extremely high barrier, right? Maybe not all, but a higher number of these than 2. A marked incongruence between one's expressed gender and primary or secondary sex characteristics. So basically, the way you feel inside does not match your body. B, a very strong desire to be rid of one's primary or secondary sex characteristics because of that marked incongruence with your experienced gender, right? So basically wanting boobs, wanting a penis, like wanting to get rid of stuff, wanting to get rid of muscle or body hair, feeling very strongly about that. C, a strong desire for the primary and secondary sex characteristics of the other gender. D, a strong desire to be the other gender. E, a strong desire to be treated as the other gender. F, a strong conviction that one has the typical feelings and reactions of the other gender. So like this is, and then you really should go through and look at like the case studies of what this really, really looks like. So it's also got to rise to the level of clinical like distress, like really screwing up your social life, your academics, all these things. So, none of this here sounds like a really high bar to me. I'm sure it doesn't to you either, Connor, which is why I don't understand why there's this culture about wanting like treating these standards as oppression. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So you kind of answer the question to the right of what would it take for you to kind of sign off on somebody transitioning under the age of 18. And what I heard was they have to meet these psychological criteria. It has to persist for more than 6 months. This needs to be in concert with family and doctor, right?
Yeah.
So we explained it to the right. So let's
and it has to cause clinical distress too.
Okay. And it has to rise to the level of clinical distress.
Extreme. If you're talking about minors, I would say extreme clinical distress.
So we kind of answered that to the right wing. So let's answer it to the left now. There are people that we know, even some people are mutuals on Twitter who have argued saying that like my parents would never have supported me transitioning. I gained secondary sex characteristics as a result of going through puberty without treatment. I did not have any kind of social support. I didn't have access to medicine. I didn't have this, that, the other. What do you say to those people who are saying that like they are experiencing these things, but even with those experiences, they're not going to get access to what you're prescribing?
I fully understand what you're talking about. I really, really do. So I would say that it's not fair what's happening to you, but there's no great public policy solution on this, right? The reality is a lot of those kids are going to go get internet hormones, right? And I think parents need to understand that. So, it's like you can either take the situation seriously or you can just pretend it doesn't exist. And I don't think pretending it doesn't exist is in the best needs of the child. Like it's an incredibly shitty situation. Leela Alcorn, I don't know if you remember this story, but her parents wouldn't let her transition, and she threw herself in front of an 18-wheeler on a dirt road and killed herself. I think she was like 16. Her suicide note went very viral. This is a really serious, tragic situation. So I think my message to the parents would be, if you love your child, would you rather have a dead child in the worst situation, or would you rather have a child that could be happy and thriving, right? It's a very, very difficult thing.
See, and this is where I was curious. So Chud was pushing back on me, pushing back on him in the chat or whatever. He got very passionate very quick. His response to what you just said, I think, would be the fact that the CAS report basically says that suicidality was not they weren't able to prove that that was like a major component of this.
Mhm.
But then I also wonder if he would object to that, because I've heard him say no, I'm very woke on trans stuff, but he always caveats it with adults. So you turn 18 and he signs off on it. But the reason why you're not hearing an opinion from me is I see a problem, but I don't see a solution that satisfies all parties.
Yeah.
So for instance, I think that trans men is almost an easier issue.
Sure.
Because if you turn 18 and you start taking tea, it's going to do some wild shit. You're going to get crazy muscles. You're going to get a beard. You're going to have acne. You're going to get a deeper voice. You're going to get this. You're going to get that.
Mhm.
I think that for trans women, it's a lot harder, because if you go through a testosterone-based puberty and then you transition back at 18, you might have picked up some secondary sex characteristics that you don't like, that are difficult to get rid of.
Sure.
And so that's where I only have a problem. I don't have a solution, because
Yeah.
it seems like the conservative side wants no minors to transition ever, and the libertarians are okay with adults transitioning. And then for progressives, it's not enough. So I just don't feel like I can win with anybody.
No, it's certainly how I feel. This is not rewarding at all to have a nuanced policy position on this. So I think it's a really unfortunate truth, but liberals or extreme trans rights activists have got to understand safeguards, if they're not kabuki theater, means not everyone is going to get through, right? And it's not like your life is completely over if you transition later in life. This is a bigger discussion, Connor. But look, I understand, for trans women as well as all women, there's a really, really high focus on looks, right? Everyone wants to be beautiful. No one wants to look like a
yeah,
whatever it is.
Can't I be ugly, please?
I'm just saying.
I'm kind of serious. Sorry, I'm joking.
Sure.
I'm joking, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but I am kind of serious. Just because I am a certain thing doesn't mean that I have to be the epitome of the thing. I can still be the thing.
It's difficult because there's some trans women that go through male puberty and it really permanently screws up their lives. It can make it impossible for people to pass at all, right? So, but I'm just saying, to me, you still have dignity if you've gone through male puberty, right? It's not like your life is over. So just, I don't know how to say this. You have worth. And I think actually a lot of the trans people I know that went through that, they have a grit about it that is a beautiful thing that has served them very, very well in their career. So, I 100% think there needs to be a path for extreme cases to transition when they're younger. But I think my message is you are still my sister. You still have value if it takes you longer to figure this stuff out. And as a public policy, like we have to build a system, and the system is going to screen some people. That's how systems work.
Yeah, I think that's an important message that I actually don't think I've really heard in the discussion, is like human value can come from attractiveness, but that should not be not the only thing. That I don't even know if that should be the most important thing. Like
Yeah.
being intelligent and empathetic and a good friend and trying to make the world a better place and being ambitious and all that kind of stuff. Those are infinitely more important attributes than your gender or your attractiveness. And so as a result, like obviously, like we all want to be the best versions of ourselves and we all want to be attractive, but at the same time, like don't preoccupy yourself solely with your looks to the point that it destroys the rest of your life.
Sure.
And as obvious as that sounds, I don't think I've heard a lot of people say it.
It's easier to say than it is to feel, right? Because you're
True.
ultimately dooming someone for a lifetime of not feeling like they measure up, which is going to cause a lot of distress. I would not wish that on anyone. It's just like there's another problem. I can't believe more people don't talk about this, Connor. And I'm sorry to get graphic, but the truth is, if you don't go through male puberty, it is a lot harder for surgeons to have enough material to even turn it into a vagina. This is a real problem because everything is going to be so much smaller. That's going to affect depth. It's going to affect comfort for sex. And there are not great answers for that, right?
That happened to one of the... No, I was just going to say that happened to one of the reality stars that was one of the first most famous trans people.
Sure. And I don't know. I guess I'm just saying, like, I'm saying we have to get past this idea that there's one correct way to be trans, because a public healthcare system is never going to work like that, right? Some people are going to need more time to figure out their stuff. They deserve human dignity. You know, some kids, maybe they have extreme emotional problems that makes it not a good time for them to transition when they're younger, and they need to sort that out. Yeah, I see trans women sometimes who are adults and they have raging like alcohol issues because they hate themselves. Like, are you really going to be able to do the hardest thing you've ever done if you're on a bender every single night? I'm not sure that's true. So I'm just saying, like, this is one of the very hardest hands you can be dealt. And I just think we've really got to get past this idea there's one way to do it.
Well, I don't want to be accused of sweeping by giving you 2 minutes of Mutahar on the DIY HRT and then allowing you to soapbox and then me soapboxing along with you. So we're going to do a little bit more content as we want to do it. Although, wait, we can make Impossible Burgers, but we can't make Impossible Neo, you know what. Yes. I did laugh at that in chat.
Keffals has given her own opinion of in the past. It's already questionable to endorse what are effectively unregulated drugs. It's even worse to explicitly advocate for their use by minors. Keffals bragged about donating thousands of dollars a year to the site to help people get access to HRT before the age of 18. She said, "I do not give a single shit what you think. I am doing nothing wrong, nor will I ever back down." The directory was even added as a link to her website with an accompanying chat command. By then, she was marketing her community as a safe space for teenagers. As a former trans kid who is now a trans adult, I want to say to all the young trans people who follow me, I love you, I care about you, and I will fight for you. We will win. There is hope for people like us in this world. They cannot and will not keep us down. I have no opposition to providing safe access to HRT for trans people who need them, right? That's just a thing. If doctors can come in and there's a way to safely do it 100%, get the proper people involved, not me, not Keffals the activist, both of us are clearly not doctors, sure. But it is dangerous to condone questionable individuals with shady histories like Keffals and deceitful messaging to illicitly offer these treatments online, especially to minors.
Yeah.
The directory was created by
You hit that really hard.
known as Bob Posting, or Chloe. Chloe and Clara have a long history of friendship together. Chloe thanked Keffals for her sponsorship and even got brought on stream to promote the site. She would reply to Clara on Twitter, 1,000 minors on HRT. Her association sparked backlash after people began to notice her bizarre fixation on secretly sending HRT to minors. I've unironically helped like a half a dozen minors acquire bathtub estrogen. No one tell them I've helped more than one minor order. I don't groom children. I just show dozens of kids every week how to buy bathtub estrogen.
Okay, can we pause it for 1 second? I have to dispel a notion before we get into how wildly unethical this is. Don't do this. Don't be involved in this. If you see this going on in a Discord, step away. Get out of that Discord. Don't, like, Jesus, this is so bad. I do want to say bathtub estrogen is such a misnomer because there's a thing, it's called a bathtub, which is a part of chemical synthesis where you just wash things out in a bath. So I think people imagine like actually sitting in your tub, Heisenberg style, where it's actually like a chemical bath, and it's a very different thing. But what is your thought about these quote unquote jokes?
Yeah. So I think that the point that's been made consistently is that they're no longer jokes if you're doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
So you can pretend that, oh, I'm just being ironic. Actually, we're really careful. We do this, that, the other. But what you're doing is you're feeding ammunition to your opponents. And also, I think that there is something really concerning about the concept of pink pilling, which I think they will talk about in a minute. Which is basically like, if there's adults who are talking to minors about the process of transitioning and they're selling all of the glowing sides with none of the negative effects, which I think that if you're a professional, they are ethically compelled to consult on potential negative side effects, on long-term risks, on this, that, the other, if you're a doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. Whereas if you're just some person in a Discord, and let's say that you had a good transition, and you just think that transitioning is the best thing and it's the best solution for anyone, there's no breaks there to stop you from telling every single kid possible, even if it's inappropriate, that transitioning is the right move for them. And I think that's the thing that's frustrating is a kind way to put it.
So this pink pilling stuff, I fully agree with that. If you are an adult, do not tell kids they are trans. Even if you're sitting there as a trans person and you're hearing a story and you're going, oh my God, I know everything about this. This kid is definitely trans. Don't tell that child they are trans. That is not unethical. It's not your role. You're opening you up for civil liability. Like, tell that kid to go to a doctor. You can talk to their parents privately. If you're a friend, you can say, this is what I think. Do not tell people that they're trans if they're underage. You don't have that right to push them in any kind of direction. It's not a joke. It's just like the fact that you even have to say this stuff is just fucking wild, man.
So if I'm hearing you correct, you are not a fan of quote unquote egg cracking or pink pilling.
No, this is not your role. I mean, am I crazy, Connor? Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I don't think I don't think you're crazy at all. I think that if you have something so sincerely, I don't want to say like wrong with you, but let's say that you have persistent gender incongruence, right? I think that's the way the Brits are describing it. If you have persistent gender incongruence, it's not going to matter what somebody else tells you.
100%.
Right? It's going to present itself, and as a result of recurring and presenting itself, you're going to know it's an issue. You're going to be able to talk to people about it. Whereas I think that if you're like, everyone is a little awkward when they're a teenager. Everyone deals with their body, and I don't like my hair there, and I wish I was more muscular, or I wish I was more pretty, or I wish I was more handsome. Everybody deals with that shit. And so if you're dealing with a confused teenager and it's not your role to push them in a direction that might have lasting consequences for the rest of their life, they have to figure it out on their own in a certain degree.
Of course. And it's intervening in something that's ultimately it's so unreasonable to do this to parents. It's so disrespectful, right? And I think you can sit there with a young trans kid and you could be like, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. You know, this is what this was like for me, but it's just the arrogance with this. It's so in the trans community's long-term worst interest to like do this stuff. It does nothing but turn people against you. And I think the average progressive out there does not understand how much these stories are freaking parents the fuck out. I mean, you've got 2 boys, Connor. Tell me if I'm crazy here.
No, you're not. If
Yeah.
I don't think my boys will experience this just because they're stereotypes of masculinity. I'm not
Sure.
kidding. They actually are. But if I found out that my 15-year-old was going through like a emotional time where he was dealing with anxiety and depression or whatever, which by the way happens to a shitload of teenagers, that's part of the anxiety of the age, is trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be and what are you versus what do you want to become. That's a huge part of that age. And so if I found out that a bunch of adults were talking to him about like, hey, have you ever considered the fact that you might be a girl?
Sure.
Then yeah, I'm gonna have a fucking problem with that,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
And like
Obviously.
in a pretty aggressive way.
There is a fear out there with parents. There's a fear out there with parents that their kids, and I'm going to use a phrase here, their kids are being transed, right? And I think there's this tension here because there's good intention there to like tell people about what non-binary is or kids that transition so you can like lessen bullying, right? I assuming it's age appropriate, and I'm not the person to determine what is age appropriate. I think we would all agree that every kid deserves to feel safe at school. They should like not get bullied. They should be able to focus on their education, right? I think everyone reasonable is going to agree on that. But I do think that like Abigail Schreier's book, which I have some major problems with, I think these kinds of messages have put something out in the culture where parents are really concerned about their kids becoming trans. I think, especially if you have daughters, just because frustration with your body is such a normal thing for teenage girls to go through. You're getting your period, things are weird, male attention is terrible. It is like there's almost no woman that doesn't experience a lot of weird feelings about this. So I think there's this growing fear that there are messages out there that you can escape all of this and hit utopia if you're trans. And I think it's freaking parents out, which is why it's so important, if you believe in trans rights in the long run, to treat those parents with respect, to treat them as partners, to talk to them openly and honestly, and stop making it seem like you're doing a bunch of underhanded shit behind the scenes.
I think that it needs to be remarked, being a dude can be scary, but being female and having the possibility of pregnancy is a terrifying physiological prospect. And so my wife, who wanted kids and wanted to be married, got freaked out by her first pregnancy. And the reason why is because it is so physiologically intense to create another life within you. So like I'm imagining like a young woman grappling with identity as they're coming into this biological function that is like intimidating and crazy and bears risks, and like you said, dealing with male attention where men are interested in you for this function as you're growing older, and that being a terrifying prospect. So if you're a socially isolated individual and then you're finding social reinforcement from a group that is kind of saying like, well, you don't have to be that thing if you don't want to.
Right.
I could understand how that might screw with the dynamic. So yeah, I'm ultimately like liberal or libertarian in this respect, where like we all have to figure it out on our own. But I think the thing that needs to be called out here is people trying to manipulate that outcome for a very specific aggressive ideology.
It's not the manipulating the outcome. Like, well, I do agree there's some people that try to recruit, but because some of those people are going to be legitimately non-binary, some of them are going to want to transition. It's the subterfuge that I am objecting to. The trans community, the big problem right now is the trans community is making enemies much, much faster than they are making friends. And the outcome of the way we've expressed ideology here has a lot of parents all across the country extremely concerned that their children are being recruited into something and they don't have a say. That's just like the trans movement is going to lose every right that exists if you don't treat parents with more respect than this, in my view.
Okay, let's push.
Okay.
How to hide it from their parents. What are you talking about? The directory does, in fact, take cryptocurrency, and at one point even instructed minors on how to buy Bitcoin. If you're a minor, get a trusted adult to purchase Bitcoin for you, or go to your local BTC ATM. Chloe has also referenced minors in relation to an act known as pink pilling, the act of convincing someone that they are trans on multiple occasions.
We already talked about this, so I want to let it flow.
Based, actually, if they reach out and express a desire for HRT. I have unironically pink pilled like half a dozen minors, and by pink pill, I mean point them to HRT resources after they reach out. So when this was brought to the public's attention, several changes to the site were made. They removed Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals and implemented a site-wide age warning. This seems to contradict their explicit advocacy for minors to use the site. 2 days later, Chloe announced she would no longer be involved in the directory. Keffals similarly distanced herself and her sponsorship vanished. She has tried to downplay her accusation ever since, and this is what she had to say earlier this year when questioned about the directory. I gave a wiki site $500 a month, and they put my website link in the banner. This was the extent of my involvement. I have never produced or distributed or even purchased DIY hormones. I didn't sell anything to trans minors, and I wasn't involved in production or distribution. Claire didn't just endorse it. She was friends with the creator who openly gloated about pink pilling minors.
Yeah.
She even joked about it with Clara.
Do we need a pause?
Stream.
I mean,
I wanted
just
you
got
on the
through.
stream because I have a
Yeah, we do want to pause.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, being friends with someone, I don't follow everything you've ever said, Connor. So I don't know. I don't think.
Which
that's
is good for
great.
me.
Yeah, that's why we have a show.
Yeah, this whole thing. I think what Chud Logic pointed to, which I agreed with, was the fact that if you endorse a certain product, you're not necessarily the person producing it, but you are in fact like a salesperson. So you're incentivizing people to engage in that behavior. So as a result, just saying like, oh, I had nothing to do with it because other people did the actual production and selling, you endorse it through your marketing and your salesmanship. Therefore, you're still involved. So you should have something to say in defense of the product.
I agree.
All right.
a lot of trans youth who watch the stream, so you gotta like chill your pink pilling stuff.
Wow, I have the perfect resource for you. So I am pretty well known for those who don't know. People know me for like being knowledgeable about DIY HRT and how to, access DIY HRT. And so I have the site, which people are already sending the link in chat, is DIYHRT.github.io. If the mods want to like plug that, that would be amazing. And
so while Chloe has since disappeared from the internet, there was actually a new development. It was discovered that shortly after retiring, she was convicted for robbing a bank in 2020. On February 14, 2020, on about 7:18 a.m., an individual wearing a surgical mask walked up to the counter at the Scotiabank branch located at and handed a note to a teller. It read, "This is a robbery. You are not in danger. Call the police 30 seconds after I leave the door. Give me all your money, no bug money." The robber handed the teller a box. The teller placed cash in the box, and the robber then left the bank with the box of cash. The teller locked the door and told her manager what happened. The police were called. This individual was identified by police as Chloe. The teller placed a GPS tracker device hidden between four $20 bills. And when she discovered this, she tried to hide it beneath some snow. It was quickly found, reported to police, and they retrieved $5,190 in cash. And Chloe was convicted in 2023. Though currently her sentence is unclear, the Criminal Notebook, a free resource on Canadian criminal law, says the average sentence in Alberta for this exact type of crime is 4 years and possibly a fine. And while it's unclear who owns the directory now, it's still around to this day. In fact, They recently added back Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals. In fact, they even
Hold on, is that you sucking your teeth? Yeah, I don't know if you come back from Lolicon, Shotokan, HRT boxes with "Do not show your parents" on the side. I don't know if you come back from that. So
Tough. That's a tough one,
yeah.
Connor.
Yeah. As some people in the progressive movement are learning, there is one more drama that's a part of this though that I want to make sure that we get to. So I want to let it flow.
I just want to give one more
sorry, go ahead.
sentence on this before
Sure.
we go. How funny is it that she robbed a bank? Like, I think there's like something going on here with emotional control, where if there's not something going off in your head that goes, oh, holy crap, I'm permanently changing the bodies of children without their parents' involvement. And like, oh, of course, I'm going to go rob a bank. That there's something with consequences going on here.
Yeah, impulse control and consequences. No, it's actually really interesting. There's a romanticization of outlaw and contrarian behavior that I've noticed with some like fringe political groups. And I noticed that even on Twitter, there were some people that are mutuals who are associated with, this line of thinking, and they valorized a gentleman who in the 70s robbed a bank in order to steal enough money in order to get his girlfriend to pass.
Yes,
she was trans.
Yes.
And then she ended up breaking up with him and actually marrying somebody else, which was sad. But he stayed like a trans advocate for life. And so that person, was like a hero. But I think there's one thing to say, like, oh, isn't it valiant to act within your belief structure against the laws of society while not hurting or killing anyone, versus being like, I'm going to take this wildly risky behavior, like you said, transing kids and robbing banks.
Okay, fair enough. Christian says, behold the representatives of online trans. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. So let's keep going.
Yeah, there's some brutal representatives out there. All right, and then there's specifically one story that I want to get to.
Go for it.
Added back that filthy Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals, clearly waiting for that public backlash to die down. Needless to say, everyone involved in this entire situation has exhibited suspicious behavior at best. So, one surprising development that actually kicked in while I'm sitting in my hotel room right now is apparently one of the actual pharmaceutical groups that was listed on the DIY HRT directory, vanapharma.com, which, by the way, ships domestically only within the United Kingdom, accepts cryptocurrency only, blah, 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 has actually been hit with a pretty bad letter in this regard. So for this is from the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in the United Kingdom. And if we look closely over here, you can see that we investigate the criminal supply of illegal medicinal products. And during one of our investigations, the following domain name has come to our attention: vanapharma.org. Internationally, every jurisdiction has its own law, blah, 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 blah. So what they actually were hit with over here, the violations, is Regulation 46, where a person may not sell or supply or offer to sell or supply a medicinal product otherwise with the terms, okay? And of course, Regulation 214, which is a person may not sell or supply a prescription-only medicine except in accordance with a prescription given by an appropriate practitioner. And of course, Regulation 279, which is a person may not publish an advertisement for a medicinal product unless one of the following is in force of the product. So yeah, they got hit with something. And again, before anybody in their camp says whatever they were doing with the DIY HRT directory was legal, this is a clear example of how what they were doing was actually not, and it required governmental intervention. And this is a clear example of government regulation kicking in and proving that what they were doing wasn't exactly above board. And it's understandable why many would be dubious of their intentions.
They also say, I guess one of their problems is that you are supporting young people, young trans people who didn't have access to hormones. You are telling them how to make homemade hormones.
Oh my God. No, I don't know how to make homemade hormones. I noticed the new thing is they're saying that I'm teaching people how to make hormones in their bathtub, which just sounds insane.
Keffals calls.
So I wanted to point this out. you brought up the fact that you're like, hey, this is a misnomer. Actually, the bath or whatever is a reference to like a chemical thing. So this is just like slang or a joke or whatever. But one of the things that I really didn't like about that clip is the fact that Keffals she does the Twitter post, right? Which is, I support DIY HRT for minors. I will never apologize. I'm not doing anything wrong. Go fuck yourself, et cetera, et cetera. And then I understand the pressure of being on a large platform and then basically being confronted with your worldview. But at the same time, that's where everything I do in public and private is backable. I can defend it. I can talk about it. I can do all that kind of stuff. So if you're not willing to own it in public, that kind of tells me about whether or not even you think you're doing something right or wrong.
Yeah, I think that's oh, that's so brutal, Connor, but it's fair.
I was about to say, are you just getting your ass kicked right now?
Yeah, I feel.
Well, if you want, so we are at
yes,
we are at 8:54. So if we could wrap it up at 9 and make a clean break, and I'll just tell you, just so we don't have to watch it, unless you want to keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what happened was, I believe, if I get the names wrong, my apologies to everybody involved. I believe that there was a Twitter mutual named Femboy Maths.
Oh, yeah. I love Maya. She's great.
Well, I think I met Maya at a PV event, and she was fantastic.
Great. Yeah, I love her.
But Danny crowed about Synth. So Synth was crowing about how she got Maya on DIY HRT before she was 18.
Yeah.
Then Maya got upset a year later, basically saying, hey, I checked my levels. They're nowhere near what they're supposed to be considering the dosaging. All of the consultation I got from DIY HRT is off. And as a result, I'm going to a doctor. Fuck you guys. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to be involved in this shit anymore.
Yeah.
And then what happened was Bob Posting and a few other people who were part of the community dogpiled her and basically said, oh, well, you're just shit talking a resource that is helping a lot of people out. So, fuck you. And so that was like a little bit of a drama. So I guess what's your vibe on Twitch and YouTube politics, people pink pilling and DIY HRTing minors in the community?
So first of all, like, Maya is gorgeous, right? She's actually a really good success story about why it's important to get trans people healthcare at an early age, right? So whereas a lot of people are dealing with alcohol abuse or psychopathy or extreme depression, Maya's out there actually working this election. She's a political professional. I don't agree with everything she does or says, but I think it's hard to not argue that she's got her head on straight and she's doing stuff that her parents are probably really proud of. She passes beautifully. She's a good person. I was
about to say, I didn't know that. She was like, oh, my handle is Femboy Mass. And I was like, is that because you're trans? You're like, I didn't say this to her, but I was like, you're a total fucking passoid.
Yeah. I mean, she's great. So, it's
good for you.
I'm glad that she got the help that she needed. And, I don't know what to say because it's a story I'm hearing secondhand. I've never talked to Maya about this. But I think it really speaks to, a doctor's best. I mean, I think Maya's results speak for themselves.
Yeah. Then I guess with that, I guess I want to put okay, so do you want to push? Because now we're going like 3 hours. So do you want to push or do you want to call?
Let's finish this up. Let's finish up this topic. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyone who questions her behavior, past or present, transphobic, accusing her critics of pedo-jacketing and groomer libel. When Ethan Klein called her out for defending Bosch's horse folder, she poisoned the well. You had me on your show and called me a hero for fighting against a far-right stalking forum that made multiple people themselves. Now you are using out-of-context clips sourced from the same website to attack people. What's truly disgusting about this is something like pedo-jacketing actually can be a real problem. It would be dishonest to act like baseless accusations of pedophilia against the LGBT community don't actually exist. But once again, Clara uses all of this to avoid accountability for her own actions. Clara, Keffals, your identity is not a shield from criticism, okay? Every time you do this, you actually throw the entire community you're supposed to be advocating for under the fucking bus. And that takes us to the tale of Catboy Ranch. For the longest time, Keffals used to block anyone who referenced Catboy Ranch. It was actually mentioned in the letter that caused her initial swatting. But journalists declined to include it. Clara later used this to justify why no one should look into it. When I was swatted, the swatters mentioned Catboy Ranch and giving children Catboy collars in an email where they impersonated me and said that they were going to shoot up City Hall. It was all Kiwi Farms misinformation. Now H3H3 fans are regurgitating it. The problem with this argument is that ultimately the documentation
it gets a little sneaky here.
Nothing on Kiwi Farms should actually be taken at face value, which is why they find it so important to archive everything. That ensures that the original source exists and allows you to verify the information for yourself. With how much misinformation and perhaps disinformation has been spreading about what Catboy Ranch really is, it's about time we look at the facts and try to understand what it actually was. When I first mentioned the subject on Twitter, she posted a link to the supposed Discord in question. By the way, the server is still up. That is not the original Catboy Ranch server. In fact, it was created in response long after in June of 2023.
So I'm going to pause it here. So we did a lot in the beginning of the stream where we're like, well, this is the way that this phrase and this phrase are not mutually exclusive. This isn't necessarily a lie. This is the stuff that's justifiable, et cetera, et cetera. This is the kind of thing, though, where if you lie like this, people will never trust you ever again. And the reason being is because I almost guarantee you that this is me making inferences. But Keffals was hoping that Mutahar would click on the new Discord because she said, this is Catboy Ranch.
Yeah.
Goes in there, doesn't see anything, moves on.
Yeah.
Whereas because it was archived, they found a different Discord.
Yeah, I can't justify it. It's intentionally misleading. It just is. It just is. We'll leave it there.
Okay. Well, then I want to ask you this question. So I was thinking about rounding it out at a solid 3 hours. I know you're running on 4 hours of sleep. We started at 6:10. It's now 9 p.m. So I'm good with calling it. However, if you feel like subject-wise we need to close this out, we can. But we actually kind of ended a chapter, and then I gave you a different chunk of a different chapter, and then this is a new chapter.
So is there anything else you want to cover? I mean, I feel like we've covered this video. We've given Keffals some good stuff. We've critiqued her. We've defended her where it's fair. I've made my position on DIY super clear. I feel good about it.
Yeah, and that's my thing is like, so for instance, there are some people who are going to accuse us of sweeping. I know that you might not want to interact with all of them, but I would be happy to. If Chud has like major beef with anything that was said here, I'd be happy to talk to him. I still like him. I'm a Chud Nation person.
100%. Just talk.
There we go. So, yeah, so if there was like a specific critique that he had or whatever, then he could bring it up in person. And then I know that
my views here are really, really clear. So
yeah, and then not a lot of people like Queeman, but I think with Queeman, typically honesty is the best policy. Where if you just say what you actually believe and you're not a pussy about it, he typically is not particularly vicious.
So this is what Destiny said a long time ago. That the reason he has never gotten into trouble publicly is he tells the truth. Right, like when he says something. Like,
well, he's gotten in trouble a few times publicly, but
okay. But generally speaking, he tries.
He hasn't been destroyed by the times that he's gotten in trouble. Okay. Yes.
So I've misspoken at points in my career, but like I've never like made up death threats like Gamergate says. I've never sent myself harassment. I know they've got that storyline about it. But every time anyone reasonable looks into it, it just like it's so obvious that the storyline is not true. So in the same way, like I fully agree with you. Like honesty is the only way to exist in this world. Like hit stuff dead on, be truthful. I'm not going to pretend my opinions are not what they are, and like let's just talk about it. So there it is.
Well, yeah, and then I'll do a little bit of a closing, but do you have any?
I have one more
closing
story I want
connections?
to cover.
Yeah, I was
before
about
we
to say,
do this.
give us. Oh, yeah, we have the other story. So yeah, go for it.
No. Okay. Do you see the link? I found this while we were recording. Can you hit this link and put it up on screen as a news story? Look at this. I know you're not a car guy, Connor, but you got to look at this sweet
This
car.
is not the story that I thought it was going to be, but let me
Okay.
move it over here. Let me share the screen. If you announce you're buying this thing, then chat and a whole bunch of people are going to eat you alive.
Oh, I'm not going to buy it.
All right, hold on. Let me go back to share screen. There we go. And that is the wrong share. How do I change it? Give me 1 second. Stop screen and then add a share. Present. Share screen. Share screen. Ferrari.
Come on, put it on screen.
I'm sorry, I'm trying. Add to stage. There we go. There we go.
Look at this.
Beautiful.
Oh, a 360. Okay, so can I walk you through evaluating this Ferrari? I'm going to turn you into a car guy, okay? Okay, so first of all, this is the 360. These were considered trash when they came out. They've really become much, much more beloved. So 15,000 miles. That's actually high for a Ferrari. This one has a beautiful V8. Ferraris are always like low mileage. The cool thing about Porsche, the reason I love to own a Porsche is you can put 100,000 miles on it. It doesn't matter. 5,000 extra miles will really impact the value of your Ferrari. But the really beautiful thing is go to that picture of that gated manual. Look at this. Oh, have you ever driven one of these, Connor?
I do drive manual, but I haven't driven this specifically.
A gated manual. Have you ever done a gated manual in a Ferrari? It is, it's crude, but it's better than sex. It is really, really, really good. It is really good. Like it's just tunk, tunk, tunk as you're doing it. So, I don't know. This is.
So, did you just want to share your love of used Ferraris for a fifth of the price that they normally are marketed for? Is that what you wanted to share with us tonight?
First of all, a new Ferrari costs about $300,000. So I just said, look at this car. Like this is going. I'd say probably by the time this auction is over, if this goes for under 6 figures, I hope 360 prices are going down. Do you not want a Ferrari?
If you show up, listen, if you're gonna, I'm not saying that you're buying the Ferrari, but if you buy a Ferrari, then you can help me with my gun business, okay?
Jeez. No, come on. Do you not like you're the Marine like dude here? Do you not see this and lust after this?
Okay, I understand the appeal of cars. I do get it. However, I beat the crap out of the equipment I use. And that's not actually a Marine thing. Like Marines are kind of known for like taking care of their equipment a little bit.
Sure.
But also like I'm a boy. I live in dirt, in mud, and I like to fight and I like to shoot and I like to do all that kind of stuff. So these things like a $200,000 car or whatever, number one, out of my price range. Number two, insurance is way too expensive. Number three, I would want to drive it the way that it's designed to be driven, which means that I would want to be 120 miles an hour plus, which I can't do around here without, getting pulled over.
No, I'd never drive my Porsches at 120 miles an hour.
But that's my point is the costs are so high that I'm better off getting a 2004 Mazda 3 Sports Edition and doing 120 miles an hour on the California highway.
Okay, first of all, you're just wrong. A Porsche is not some sacred cow. It's just a well-made car that's fun to drive. Okay, so if you don't, there's nothing sadder than a garage queen Porsche that just lives there and gets rubbed with a diaper. You gotta go out there and actually drive them and do donuts with it and figure out where your suspension breaks in a parking lot by driving too quick when there are no cops around. You got to do all of that. Okay, so these are not like sacred machines. Like it should go get dirty. Like your Ferrari is failing its purpose if you don't go do that. So I just disagree with your assessment. As far as the insurance, okay, that's 100% fair, but it's not like there are dirt cheap like Porsches out there. Like my Boxster is a $6,000 car. it is a billion times fun to drive.
Sure. No, I mean, I'll agree with that. But I also have to defend guns real quick. For $600 or $1,000 or $2,000, it's going to be $2,000 or less. You can take the power of fire and metal and detonate a small explosion by your face and fling a chunk of metal thousands of feet per second and then explode something that should be, difficult to explode, and yet you are basically given the hand of God through the Constitution of the United States of America. You are given the power of destruction. And I really have to thank our founding fathers for that. I really have to thank the culture and Constitution of the United States of America. It's a fairly unique civil liberty that we have, or civil right. And I'm very proud and very happy to exercise that. So that's more my thing than vehicles, I would say.
Okay, fair enough. The vehicles are so much fun. Like, did you never watch a James Bond movie growing up? And
of course I did. And you know what I said when I saw that? I was like, that shit looks expensive.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Enjoy driving around town in your minivan or whatever, Connor.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on. Let me change the banner right before we do out. So I think we're going into outros. I'll stick around for chat and answer any weird questions that you guys might have. Let me go ahead and change it to the 2-person. What else do you have to tell chat tonight? So we're down to 80, but we did peak out at like 110. We jumped up and down there a few times. We're at 93, then we're back up to 105, 93, 105. And by the way, I do not take it personal. If you have to leave anytime during stream, I do the same thing. I jump in for 30 minutes or an hour, I hang out, I have a good time, and then when my wife yells at me to go do the dishes, I go do the dishes. So what else do you have to share with the folks at home?
I think I'm good to go. I'm about to jump on a plane tomorrow. Frank is going to babysit the dogs. I've got to go to DC, do some work with elected officials, I will say. That'll be fun. And I'm going to go hang out with my cousin, Lori, who I haven't seen in a while. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm going to hang out with my good friend Claire, too, from the infamous Brianna Wu chat. That'll be good.
Beautiful. And then for me, I actually don't have really anything else. I'll hang out and just talk to chat for a minute when you go. But basically, in reference to this, I think that even when you dislike somebody, even when you hate somebody, you have to pay attention to the indictments that people are making against them and see if they line up with the facts on the ground. And you can still be totally right that this person is an asshole or dog shit or not worthy of whatever. That doesn't mean you have to lie about them. So call them out for what's real and what's fucked up. And then don't allow people to lie, because basically as soon as you start lying, you're all fucked. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, one more chat comment before I go. Convince Destiny to buy this. I actually started a thread on the Destiny subreddit a while ago.
Saying
Look,
he's rich. Why the fuck doesn't he have a nice car?
I appreciate Steven, and the Ford Focus RS is actually a really, really good machine. It is practical. It is manual. The wheelbase is great. It feels amazing to drive. This is actually a really sophisticated choice of car. But what I don't understand about Destiny is he could get a Ferrari, a used Ferrari, and then it's the Destiny Ferrari, and then he can sell it. It will be worth so much money. If I were him, I would be going to like Matt Farah and like having him make me a custom, like whatever, Porsche, Lotus Emira, Lotus Elise, Lamborghini Aventador, LP400, whatever it takes, and then just make it the Destiny car and just make a machine. He will make so much money with that. I don't understand why he doesn't do this.
Yeah, you're showing chat that we're in different tax brackets, but that's okay.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Because like I'm buying Warhammer and guns over here. So like, which is expensive, by the way. It's just not as expensive as wrapping a custom Ferrari.
When you come to Boston, you can drive any of my Porsches that you want. I'll just throw you the keys, and you and your wife can go have a lovely time.
Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna check in with chat, make sure that they don't have any other questions or concerns. We're gonna dip for the night. It was a very fun time. I'm looking forward to the next week.
We're gonna have a good time. Talk soon, man.
All right, bye. And then, ladies and gentlemen, give me a second. I'm gonna swip over to the solo. I appreciate y'all putting up with the tech stuff. I'm just going to check the comments. If you have questions or concerns from me, go ahead and do add counterpoints in the chat. I can see both chats. I can see Twitch and YouTube. I do want to thank you guys. This was our first show back. We did break 100 multiple times. We're like 100 to 110 the entire time. We also got a healthy chunk of donos. Like we're not rich or retiring, but we got, 50, 60 bucks out of tonight, which is, we're not rich. We're not going anywhere, but for a random random Thursday night stream jumping on after a 3-week hiatus with us updating the tech stuff. I do appreciate you hanging out with us and giving us a few dollary dues for the pleasure. Actually, this chat is so well integrated. There's no timing for it. So basically it goes back all the way to the beginning, and I don't want to start from the very, very, very beginning. So if you have questions, please ask them now. Convinced Destiny to buy it. Thank you both. Enjoyed live streaming. You're welcome. I'm gonna try to get that right. Scavis. You're welcome. It was a fun stream. I did have a good night. The blue pill mobile is what we'll call Destiny's new vehicle. True. Destiny could get a fucking Lambo. Lol. He doesn't give a fuck about cars. I know. And there's plenty of guns that I would want him to buy, but honestly, like, I'm a practical gun guy. But there's like the Korth 44 Magnum revolver that is beautiful. There's the Alien Lago, that's like a $5,000 gun. There's a bunch of 2011s, but the good news is there's a new brand called Tisas, Tisas. I think they're Turkish. They came out with a 2011, which is it's a 9mm 1911 double stack. And that thing is only like $700 or $800. So they're literally beating the competition by half or a third, which is amazing. So yeah, there's lots of cool gun stuff going on. But the truth is that if you get into guns, if you're a collector, you're never making back your investment because you'll just sink cash into endless amounts of pieces. Counterpoints, you heard about Fallout London that's coming out soon? No, but that sounds awesome. If that's a TV show or a video game, I will play either. Christian Valera says at Counterfire, are you streaming tomorrow? Yes. So I have to be flexible with my time because I have to take care of the family. It was a birthday yesterday, all that kind of stuff. But I do owe you, specifically Christian Valeris, I owe you the second half of the JonTron debate. So it will either be tomorrow, which is Friday. I might have another commitment. I will get that to you in the next 4 days. So yeah. I have another 217 viewers if you count the Queeman stream snipe. What a fucking little hater that guy is. Queeman, you can have me on at any time, buddy. If you ever have some shit talking thing to say, you can just say it to my face. So, I'll tell you. So this is my compliment to Queeman and Chud. So Chud got pissy when I was in his shit earlier today, and I was asking about the cast report, and I was kind of asking him to be a little bit more charitable to Brianna, I guess. But he got pissed off, but he was like, "Oh, you sweeping Janny freak," which no, I'm not gonna cover shit up. And if you think I'm covering shit up, then you just need to say it to my face and we'll talk about it. And then he was like, "Oh, you only show up when I'm talking about Brianna." And it's like, it's not fucking true. That's not true at all. So the way that it works with Chud Logic is if he has a drama that I'm interested in and he's live, I go watch Chud Logic. If it's a drama that I'm not interested in, let's say it's like Dark Viper AU or it's some like Twitch aristocracy thing or whatever, then I'll go watch an old drama. And then if I check out Chud Logic and his stuff, like I've already seen everything he has like twice over and there's no new content or whatever, then I'll definitely go to Queeman and I'll check out and see if Queeman's talking shit about somebody that I hate. And I'll watch that shit too. Drama is really high calorie and really fucking fun. So, I talk this big game about wanting to do like real political shit, and I do. But the truth is that just mindlessly listening to a British guy shit talk people you don't like, that is fucking fire content. So, they're lucky in a certain respect. They chose drama as a vocation. I think that's a good little live streaming niche. They have good accents, they speak well, and they shit talk people, and that's entertaining. So God bless them. God bless them and good luck. Are any rich guys finding the creation of power armor or funding the creation of power armor? If not, why not? What's their problem? So the real problem is batteries. Batteries for power armor, they just don't last as long as they need to. We really need miniaturized fusion before we have like Space Marine tier power armor. There is a British guy who did build an exoskeleton that does have a battery system, and it's decent. It would make excellent functional cosplay. I was actually looking at that the other day because obviously I'm doing all my cosplay props and all that kind of bullshit. But the truth is that it looks like a really expensive investment, like material, time investment, fitting it, cutting it, bolting it, all that shit. Yeah. So the Lotus Eaters exist because of Tiny. Maybe in a way. Actual live stream, whatever 4690 says. Yes. So typically I'm live on Counterpoints, but what we're going to try to do specifically for Counterfire and maybe even for political content is we are going to start using Counterfire as the vehicle for it. And then we'll use the old Twitch Counterpoints channel because frankly, you know, it's only a half dozen people anyway. So to be honest, if we have content that people are willing to engage with, then it just needs to grow anyways. So yeah. It gets the views. True. It's true. I do love drama. I doubt Hero's wife wants family on the internet. Do family streaming? Yeah, I probably wouldn't do family streaming, but my son might do YouTube in the future. He's interested. He likes it. I am getting a call that I'm probably going to have to take in a minute, but I can call them back. With how much money they're putting into Henry Cavill show, I hope we see some sick shit. Yeah, me too. I am worried though because everybody keeps rumor milling that Henry Cavill is going to leave the show. I really hope that's not true. I hope that they didn't put in female custodians and then try to rewrite all his scripts and then he fucking dips out. That would not be cool. But I want to say, it's fair to keep your family private. Thank you. Whatever 4690. If you have donos, become a patron. Go to the Indiegogo linked in the Bolter video. Or become a YouTube member. Shill. Give us money. But Christian Valaris says one more question before we leave. But parasocial love to you and yours. Christian Valaris, ask your question quickly, and then we're going to dip out. I'm not saying Henry Cavill left. I'm saying that they keep rumoring that he's going to leave. All right. Yeah, Christian Valaris. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's rumors. All right. Parasocial love to you and yours. Have a beautiful night. Bye for now.